So thank you. Tonight we're going to be going through and we're going to be talking about classroom management and reducing behavioral problems in children. We've all had a child like that, haven't we? Someone who's just having a difficult time. So we're going to try and work on some things to decrease the child's opposition with teachers, decrease negative behaviors and non-compliance, and decrease peer aggression and disruptive behaviors in the classroom. If your classroom is running smoothly where there's no disruptive behaviors, how are they ever going to learn how to deal with disruption? Right? Because you know, if they leave your program, they're going to go to kindergarten. Not everybody can be little angels there. They're going to have to learn to deal with some of this stuff. So we're going to talk about some of these things. So first we're going to say, what are the symptoms of opposition and negative behaviors and non-compliance? I spent all weekend just trying to find these slides, just pictures, just to throw in there that you can all relate to. One of my baby pictures. No. We all know about ODD, oppositional defiant disorder. Again, some of these things are kids who are not trying to, it's just there because they're having a hard time dealing with. Right? You've got ADHD, which is sometimes ADD, it's attention deficit hyperactive disorder. Some kids don't have the hyperactive. It's just attention deficit disorder. You get temper tantrum, and I'm not talking about the terrible twos. Terrible twos is something the kids are going to go through. All right? By the way, my children are 16 and 13. I'm still waiting for them to go through the terrible twos. Because, as you know, terrible twos is something they're going to have to go through. Why do you fight them? It's like trying to fight them going through puberty. You can't stop them. Terrible twos is going to happen. If you know the symptoms and know how to deal with it, it doesn't have to be that terrible. But temper tantrums will be different from the terrible twos. These things will be different than natural development. ODD can cause clinical impairment in their social, academic, and occupational functioning, and is characterized by a recurrent, which means this is something that's not just, oh, it happens on Mondays, or they're just tired. These are things that keep happening. There's negativism, there's defiance with them. They're being disobedient and hostile towards authority figures. And authority figures are you guys right there, parents, even older siblings. They're going to view as authority parents. And this is something that can happen for a 6-month period or more. So again, the terrible twos, that doesn't last all terrible twos. They're going to outgrow it. These are things that are going to be happening. So a child who comes in and just having a bad week, no, that's not ODD. They're having a bad week. For me, I've seen kids are most tired and have the hardest time on Mondays and Fridays. Monday, because they've been busy with the parents and probably have not had any naps. Friday is been a long week. And so I'm seeing most of the negative behaviors are with children on Mondays and Fridays. That's not ODD. That's just what's going on in their weeks. And that's where we were talking before. We need to slow things down. Parents get too involved in things. They're rushing around. You don't need to do all of that. Think about it for you folks. Think about it for your kids, what you've done with your own personal children. All the running around you're doing. Think about when you were kids. Did your parents run around to every little thing? And then you saw it. So sometimes we need to stop and say, okay, how much are we trying to put in their days? And how much are we causing some of their anxieties? Because it's rush, rush, rush. Learning disabilities is a term that describes a heterogeneous or a mixed bag of disorders, and that impacts listening, speaking, reading and writing, reasoning, math, and social skills. These are going to affect them in almost everything. Think about it. What can you do in school if you can't read? Very little, right? So learning disorder is the same thing. It affects your whole development. It makes it hard to do almost any of these because you can't follow along. Right? And learning disabilities don't go away. You can't give them a pill for it. You can teach them to work with it. You can help them to identify some of the shifts and some of the causes that are coming on that will lead them to start being too hyperactive. But it doesn't go away. You learn to work with it. Now, there's a difference between bad behavior and oppositional or defiant behavior, and it's a matter of degree. You get some kids who are having a bad day, or you've got some kids who are having a bad day. There's the degree of frequency and intensity. When I was a kid, my parents, my mom, all my mom's siblings went to Connecticut. All of my dad's siblings moved down to Lewiston, Auburn area. When I was about 13, my dad was going to visit his brothers, my uncles, and I wanted to go, but he was leaving on Friday morning. And he said, no, you can't miss school. So I sat upstairs in the hallway and I cried. And I made sure they could hear me downstairs. And I made sure I did it long enough. My dad finally said, okay, you can come with me. Right? That's not bad behavior, that's not ODD. All right? That's where I wanted to get this done. Trust me, I didn't do that very often. Right? My son Mason, last year, was very excited with his buddies, right? 8th grade, he was very excited with his buddies, and they're having fun. He's like, somebody said, well, you know, the school is closing. The brewer got in his school. The school is closing. I want to have this desk, and I want to have, and my son, oh yeah, I want this door. And he takes a permanent marker, and he writes Mason's door. And as soon as he did the R, he thought, oh shit. Because he just put a permanent marker on the school door, Mason's door. That's not ODD, that's not ADHD, that's nothing, that's just, I got caught up in the moment, and I realized as soon as I did it, I was wrong. And he went to apologize to the teacher, had to make amends. So we have to make sure that we're looking at an isolated incident or incidents versus long-term things, all right? Children with defined tendencies display destructive behavior to the extent that it disrupts their learning, their school adjustment, their home life, or the home lives, others around them, and sometimes with their social relationships. I've worked as an independent therapist, working in homes through child development services for a number of years, and I go to work with a specific child, and I'd be working with that child, and then the parent would say, by the way, my oldest son is now saying he has a hard time, and now he needs you to work with him too, because they want that special attention. All right? So we have to be careful that the child working with other children want to be involved too, so they start displaying that. And you have to make those differences and get them to realize, I'm working here with this child, I'll help you a little bit. So they don't start getting into that feeling, well, they can start taking over or being involved. ODD is a comorbid condition, which means it can be affected with other things that come with it, like Tourette syndrome, obsessive compulsive disorder, anxiety mood disorders, Asperger's, and Asperger's has quite a varying scale on it, language processing impairments, sensory integration deficits, and nonverbal learning disabilities. So there's a lot involved with ODD. When I was a kid, we would say c'est déplaisant. It's just a kid who's a nasty kid. All right, that's just what it was termed back then. You weren't given special privileges. Now, in my opinion, sometimes ODD is over-diagnosed. It's like, you know what, it's easier to go through and say, this is what's going on, let's give them a pill for it, versus saying, okay, wait a minute, what's causing some of this stuff? Right? And when we delve into it sometimes a little bit more, we can find out things going on at home. I had a little boy, this is going to be a dozen years ago, actually more than that, one semester, because I think in terms of semesters here being at the university, one semester, his behavior just deteriorated. And a month into the semester, it's not the same little boy, 4 years old. Talked to the mom, had her come in and talk to me, and seeing what's going on, she said, well, I'm working, I'm doing my rotation nursing right now, and I'm not home very much. And I said, okay, we just found out the reason. He wants attention. He's not seeing his mom, he sees her very little. He gets home, he's got a babysitter, he sees her before he has to go to bed. That explains some of the stuff that was going on. When she was done her nursing rotation and spent more time at home, his behavior went right back to where it was. So we have to be careful kind of what some of the underlying causes before we say, this is their diagnosis. 50 to 65% of defined children have ODD and either ADD or ADHD. We're talking about a high percentage. 35% have developed some form of affective disorder. 20% have some form of mood disorder, such as bipolar or anxiety. 15% develop some sort of personality disorder, and many of the children also have learning disorders. So you can see there's a spectrum here that can go on. Children come through, and it's not just one thing. They're battling all sorts of things, and you're thinking, I got to deal with this child who's doing all of this, and I got 6 other children to work. Right? And that's where you'll see later on that staff really have to work together. I'm not going to read all of it. We're talking about obnoxious behavior. This is where the intent. It's not a child who is tooting in class. This is a child who's purposely burping in class just to get you thrown off so they can get some attention. Everybody laughing at them and all of this. This is where they're trying to do that, especially the teacher or the parent when the parent is trying to do something. I see faces going, right? You're reacting to this. Come on in. Right? You know who all these authority figures are, right? It affects all sorts of things. School attendance, bedtime, homework deadlines, cleaning the room, orderly desk, personal grooming, and appearance. But sometimes these things is not always ODD. Sometimes it's just, I don't want to, or I'm too busy, I didn't have a chance to get to it, right? Years ago doing CDS, there was a little boy who was giving his parents a very difficult time at such normal things as having a snack while they're watching TV at night, going to brush their teeth, washing up to get ready for bed, going to bedtime routine. Horrible things he was doing to his parents. And he kept telling them, you're mean, you're making me do this, you're mean. Dealing with the child, I'm thinking, all these things are things that kids typically do. He's 4 years old. So I got permission with the parents, so they got to know me. I always get to know your parents. And I said, let's have a sleepover at my house. My son is 4 years old. He has bunk beds. Let's do a sleepover. They came over, got us inspected and everything. Sure enough, we did sleepover, which is not something I recommend very often because of all the liabilities. But they had a chance to do the normal things that my son Mason would normally do. When it was time for bed, they both went up, bathroom, washing up, brushing teeth, went to bed. Not a peep from either the 2 4-year-olds in the bedroom like this. Next day he went home and he said, Mom, tonight when it's bedtime, I want to do this and this and this and this and this. He realized that's what kids typically do. My parents are not being mean. This is a normal bedtime routine. So sometimes it takes them to realize your parents are not being mean. This is what kids do. But it takes a little while of give and taking and guessing to get some of that going through. Some of the children share many of the characteristics. A strong need for control and will do anything to gain that power. And when I say anything, they'll do anything. You can offer them what they really want, and they'll still say no because they want to get you going. They want to have control of it. They deny responsibility for their misbehavior and have little insight to how it impacts others. My nephew Ricky, who is now in his early 30s, he was a good one for that. He had 2 younger siblings, and he'd go through and he'd be marking on the walls. Who did that? They did. And so in the beginning, they got punished. They had no concern about it until they realized they're not doing it. He is. He just felt, if I blame it on somebody else, I don't have to worry about it. So it's like the kids who go through, if I hit you, it doesn't hurt me, why are you crying? They don't understand the impact it has on others. So kids don't usually get that. They don't have that sense of empathy on somebody else. Right? Again, if you've got things you want to say, don't hesitate. Right? The child is socially exploited and very quick to notice how others respond, and then, once they know what you're going to do, they use those responses to their advantage in social environments or both. One little boy had a very hard time. The parents said, we can't go anywhere with him. He's just explosive underneath things. I'm thinking, because I just don't see that in me. Let's do this. Let's set up a situation where you're going to go shopping. Wherever you go shopping, let me know. I'll get there ahead of time. I'll hide so I can see what's going on. So we decided to do Sam's Club. Nice big store. My wife works there. I know everybody there. Great place to do it. So I got there a few minutes early. They walked in. Everybody could tell that they had walked in. Because he was yelling, screaming, call his dad a fucker. Oh! Right? He's in the cart, kicks his dad in the groin. Right? Everybody, some of the workers come around saying, I'm glad that's not my job. So I caught Mom's attention, and he's like this. She came over and said, do you want some milk? She said, yes. So I sent her back. I went around the corner. I'm walking around. The little boy sees me from here, Marcus, and he just stops. I went over and I said, are you going to do? I spent about 36. That's not how you do it. You know, this is you do. Just a little spiel. Okay, I gotta go do my shopping. Walked off. Not a sound from him in that respect anymore. Politely talking to his mom and dad, asking for things. The magic fairy dust. But I said, that's not okay. And he knew from me that I just wasn't going to accept it. His parents, over time, had just kept allowing it. Now, what set it off? When they got inside, it was the lollipop tree for Children's Miracle Network, and he asked for a lollipop, and Dad said, sure, you can have it. So Dad went to reach for one. He said, no, I want to get it. But there were so many people coming and going that they couldn't get the cart there, so Dad got it for him, and that's all it took for him to get off of it. Right? So sometimes you need to stop and step back and say, wait a minute, let's deal with this, but let's set the stage before we go out. If you know you've got a child who's difficult in a restaurant, first of all, don't take them to too many restaurants. Take the restaurant work more fast if you have to go to McDonald's just to get in there out, but you start tempering things, start working to it, but you set the stage beforehand. Right? These kids can tolerate a great deal of negativity. You think, my God, why aren't you just giving up? Nope. Sorry, they thrive on it. It's something that they need. It makes them feel like they're alive. They thrive on it. They like conflict, they like anger, negativity, and they like seeing you get red. I had a little boy who just really targeted one teacher. One time I sat him and said, what is going on? What is happening here? He said, I like to see her get red. That was his answer. I had another little boy who just really was having a difficult time. You know, you have that range children can do, really toward the end of the extreme range. And I said, what's going on here? He looked at me and he said, I have a bad attitude. Yeah, everybody tells me I have a bad attitude, so I have a bad attitude. So he's basically saying, I can do what I want because I have a bad attitude. You've given me that label, I can do it now, just blame it on that. And I said, you might have a bad attitude, but it's not going to work here. And so you have to realize it's not going to work. He was using that as an excuse. So for him, any attention is good attention. And if they can't get good attention, I'll get it somehow. So they'll go for the negative attention. Some of the list of characteristics: getting angry easily, arguing and talking back, define reasonable requests. Everybody sometimes will say, no, I don't want to do that. But they're defined requests, even things that they might like to be doing. Do you want apple pie tonight for supper? No, I don't. They just have to do it. Bucking the rules, bothering people personally, pushing the limits, and I didn't do it. It's not my fault. I have a bad attitude. They just accept no responsibility for it. They're easily annoyed, resentful, spiteful, vindictive. They speak harshly. I had one little boy who had no control over his voice. He could not control the tone or anything on his voice. He's like, no, no, no. I'm not going to listen to you when you're talking that way. You need to bring your voice down. You need to try to do nicer words. And it took a couple of days before I would even listen to him. Make sure it wasn't a dangerous situation. But he finally was able to go through and try to bring his voice down where it was a reasonable request. He could talk to people. But he was allowed to do that. Having frequent temper tantrums out of those terrible 2 time frames. Parents of these children described as being rigid and demanding from an early age. Right? And for some children, you can tell right away they're going to have some issues. I've known some teachers by 6th grade, they can tell which kids are going to be in jail. They've seen enough characteristics of these children they can pinpoint. My problem with that is, if you're saying you can pinpoint it, are you giving them less attention because you feel it's not worth it? So we have to be careful. When you get a child who's coming in and you figure, uh-oh, I get this child pegged. You have to take that and throw it away and say, I have to give them an open slate. When I worked for CDS, they would send me the paperwork and say, would you take on this child? I'd read all the paperwork, put it aside, and go make my own assessments because that's somebody else's opinion. I don't know how much they've seen them. I don't know the context. I want to make my own impressions of these children. So you have to be careful when someone says, uh-oh, you get somebody coming up to you. Like, really? Let me see how they do for me. Because we were talking to a few people before. Have you ever had parents come into your program saying, how come they do that for you, but they won't do that for me? Right? So viewing that, when someone says, oh, you got a nightmare coming up, let me make my own decision on it. All right? Give them that opportunity. Especially with me, I'm number 12 of my family. Can you imagine the parents, teachers of the 11 ahead of me saying, oh, here comes another one. Right? By the way, I'm the 12th child born on the 12th day of the 12th month. My brother's the 6th boy born on the 6th day of the 6th month. 6. I'm twice as bad. All right, there's 2 different theories about why kids do this. You get developmental theory, saying that the resistance is really part of incomplete development. For some reason, these children never really complete the developmental task that typically developing children don't like normal. I've never seen normal. Typically developing children never really complete the developmental task. They don't master them during the toddler years. They get stuck in the 2 to 3-year-old stage of child defiance and never grow out of it. Do you remember the song from the Eagles about 15 years ago, Get Over It? Right, I want to find your inner child and kick his little ass, get over it. Kids go through and they get stuck there and they have a hard time. The problem we have to realize is, fine, you may be there, but I'm not going to allow you to use that as an excuse for anything you want to do. You may be stuck there, but you still have to follow through these parameters. Because if you start giving allowances to every child in your program, do you have control of your program? So you get developmental theory, and then you get learning theory. The defiance develops as a response to negative interactions. The techniques used by parents and authority figures on these children bring about the disobedient behaviors. The parents aren't to blame when this happens because what they're doing, they're different children. For some children it will work. For some children it just doesn't work. And it's not the parents' blame. All right? Think about it. Think about some families you know growing up or families you know right now. You've got good parents there, but one of the kids just ends up being in trouble all the time. Parents are giving them the same thing, but some children are just going to be led to the dark side, if you will. Right? So we're looking at innate, what you're born with, versus environmental. Think about it. I've only lived in Maine. Right? First I've gone south is Skowhegan. Right? I've been 30 years in the Bangor area. I can't imagine going to live in Chicago or New York or even Boston. Right? I can't imagine trying to bring up my children there. Now that's a bias I have. They're probably great places to go to. But I can't see bringing up my children there with all of those influences where you have to have the bars on your windows at night when you close them. To me, I can't see bringing up children that way. So I like this area. So You have to look at what kids go through into school. How many of your kids, your personal children, when they get to school, have to be patted down or go through a metal detector? Imagine if you had to go through that going to work. What does that mental strain put on you? That, okay, if they're worried about me bringing something in, what's the next person bringing in? So when you look at what some kids are going through, environmental can have a big impact. Yes, ma'am?
But I just wanted to say too that one of the things I see in families that have children with those kinds of behaviors, and they seem to be doing everything right, and it's never going well. One of the things that I always say to parents is, for those of us that spent time thinking about being a parent before we became one, I think that a lot of parents, what they do is they think about what kind of, they may not call it a parenting style, but they think about what kind of parent they're going to be. Boom, I used to think that I was going to be this democratic parent, but I had a child with a lot of this. Being a democratic parent didn't work for that child. So sometimes what I try to help families see is that you've got to shift your thinking about what kind of parent you were going to be to meet the needs of this particular child. And sometimes that's just, I know for me it was a real recognizing that shift and acknowledging it and saying, okay, this is not what my child needs. This is the kind of parent my child needs, so this is the kind of parent I need to be.
And this is the child I wanted, and this is the child I got. We all have those idealized versions of, oh, this is my child, the angelic child. And you realize, not quite what I got. But because of those child has those things going on, does not mean we use that as a reference at all. They're just going to do it anyway. No, sorry. We can let things get way out of control like that guy. Right? Or we can say, okay, we're going to have a structure here. What I talk about with my program with all my teachers is I use umbrellas. Actually, I'll come up with it later. It's one of the slides. Too much versus too little structure. Are we doing laissez-faire, letting them do whatever they want to, or are we saying, okay, we're going to have a structure here? The question is, do they understand that structure and what the expectations are? Right? If they don't understand it, they can't follow it. Right? How would you like it if you get to work and your boss has new directions for you, they're all in German? Hard for you to follow them unless you speak German. Right? So we need to make sure that we let them know what's going on. In an overly structured environment, the parent is rigid and inflexible. It's my way or the highway. My father, bless his soul, was that way. My way or the highway. That's what he grew up with, and he could not change. He could not adapt. Now we've gone too far to the pendulum where you want to go out drink with your friends at 14? Sure, right? Just make sure you're not driving. Sorry, too far over. We need to make sure we're being careful about it. When you're rigid and flexible, they micromanage and come down hard on their children, controlling every aspect of their lives. In the headlines a couple years ago, the Tiger Mom. These are moms who are going through their children. There's a lot of Asian families who were very specific with their children. And the children were practicing almost every time where they're not sleeping or in school. Right? Their children are very successful. But at what cost? Right? Single child and overprotective parents. When I was in school 100 years ago, or at university, my instructor told us about a family. A professional family had one child, a boy. They were very overprotective. Protected him from every emotional and physical pain. 16 years old, he has his first girlfriend. She dumped him and he killed himself. Oh. He had no idea how to handle it. We do our kids a disservice by sheltering them from everything. Now some people will say, well, that's just one of those, folklores. One of the kids I worked with in some of the different jobs, I gotta be careful here. This child had a very difficult upbringing. Very unstructured, very chaotic. 15 years old, she had a boyfriend, he dumped her, and she tried to kill herself and ended up in Acadia. That's true, that's one of the kids that I worked with. So it can happen. It's not all just folktales. It does happen. Children can exhibit defiance when parents don't provide enough structure by setting appropriate boundaries or establishing following through the consequences. Again, the Sam's Club issue, the little boy. I had no magic power. I walked out, I kid you not, he saw me from this distance and he just stopped. Right? Why? Because I set myself up that this is not okay. And I'm not going to allow it. Whereas the parents got tired. How many of you guys get tired during the day? How many parents do you think get tired during the day? And sometimes it's easier to just say, okay, it's fine, you can go ahead and do it, but tomorrow we're not going to do it. Tomorrow night comes. Okay, I've got, right? Sometimes it takes that effort to be able to say, okay, we're going to set that structure, that parameter, which I'll talk about. Am I going too fast? No. I have that tendency. Does my child have special needs? Of course not, right? All of our children aren't perfect. Which parent wants to hear that there's an issue with their child? I remember one family that I worked with. I sense something wrong with this child. Just behavior issues, nothing drastic. But I checked with all of my staff, and every one of my staff all came back and said, yeah, I think, and I checked them individually. So you don't sit there as a group saying, yeah, we all think there was out. No, individually, met with the parent, and I explained what's going on. Mom seemed receptive to it. Dad was just sitting there. And I said, Dad, you're not seeing much, what do you think? He looked at me and he says, I think you're full of shit. I wanted to look at him and say, really, don't hold back, tell me what you're thinking. And I told him how to have that poker face, and I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, my son is just spoiled. Right? We've been spoiling, he's the youngest one, we just spoiled him. Okay, I can't get very far at that point. I've got my background, I've got the things I've gone through, I've listed everything, that's what they are. I can't change that. What have I done? I've done what I'm supposed to do. I have a concern, I've verified it, I have my backup, I've addressed it with them. In my program, I'm going to deal with it this way. I can't determine what they're going to do at home. Long story short, child went to a different program for the summer. I happened to be there doing staff training. Staff all said, he's not ready for kindergarten. Child went to kindergarten. I happened to be there for an IEP teacher. Looked at me and said, he's not ready for kindergarten. All right? So you have to go through and follow what your gut is. Make sure you get your backup for, address it to the parent, but unfortunately sometimes only so far you can go, unless they're being very difficult and they're a danger to the program. So all children are different. What's causing the issue? Sneakers. I had one little boy, when it was nap time, said, okay, we're sleeping on the mat, you need to take off your shoes. Fighting me tooth and nail. Like, what's going on? I explained to him, if you have your sneakers on, you might tear the lining of the little mat. Well, at home, when they punished him, they took his sneakers off. He's thinking I'm punishing him. I had to overcome what he was going through. That's where I can't be the authoritarian and say, you're going to... What was going on? Once I found out what's going on, I could explain things to him all the better. I pointed out that everybody's taking their sneakers off. You can set them right here, and when that time's done, you need to put them back on. He was able to work with it. All right? Parents working more. Illnesses in the home. Grandparent ill. Money issues. How many families, you were talking about now one car because families can't afford the gas, they're trying to carpool. Those are issues, those are things that cause some of this with children. Parent issues, impending divorce, daddy doesn't live with us anymore, loss of a job, moving, family stress, or death in the family. And it doesn't need to be an adult or a human, it can be a pet that can cause some of this stuff. And what's really good is when your parents can come in and say, just let you know, I don't have to have this so he's having a difficulty talking about it, and this is what's going on. That's where your parents are coming to help you, that you're aware of what's going on. So if the child is exhibiting something a little different that day, give an understanding of it. Some of the disruptive behaviors are cause-specific and can be dealt with in a simple manner. Find out what's going on, like with the sneakers. Once we got that taken care of, no more problems at that time. He take off his sneakers, put them there, lay down for his mat. He's now in his 20s. Right? We have to look at our child's temperament. We have to be careful that we're not going to label them. Some shy kids are labeled introverts, social outcasts, and stuck up because they have a hard time just sort of reaching out to talk to you. And so what happens in older ages, they're called stuck up. And does that help them any? Probably not. Some kids are active and they're hyper, they're difficult, they're mischievous, and some people think they're purposely against me. I mean, look at that child. Right? Wouldn't that be a great Omen movie? Right? Avon Collie. Right? And I kid you not, when some parents think they're doing it to me on purpose, all right? They're out to get me. That's when you sit and talk to a parent and say, let's look at development. Let's look at what's going on, right? Some temperaments can be changed or tempered, but we have to learn how to work with it. I am not in favor of breaking the child and saying, you're going to do what I say or else. Because at that point, you're breaking that spirit. I got some little girls who have a lot of gumption. My daughter's one of them, all right? I think that's a good thing that it can be tempered. Because if they have that gumption, they're never going to get pushed around. All right? So you don't want to break a child, but you want to temper it and say, great, I'm glad you feel that way. When you tell a child, you can't hit me, they turn around and they pinch you. No, you can't pinch me, so they scratch you. No, you can't scratch me, so they kick you. All right? They're following your words. So now when I'm dealing with the child, I say, no, hitting, kicking, scratching, pinching. And I'm very descriptive on what it is that's not allowed. Right? Because kids will go through. You didn't say I couldn't spit on you. Yeah. Right? Parents have to realize, how are you interacting with your child? But same thing for you folks. How are you interacting when you hear that, oh, you've got this child coming? Because I know some of you work in programs in multi-age. You get a child coming to your program. Have fun with this one. That's how they dealt with it. You have to give them that clean slate. Are you causing some of the issues? Tammy, right? Twilight, Tammy, okay. If I say Twilight, can you look at me a cup of coffee? What are you gonna say?
Sure.
Good. What if she says no? Can I make her do it now?
No.
Because I asked her a question, she said no, and I'm not listening to her. If I make her do it, we're gonna have that test of wills, aren't we? All right? Not gonna lead anywhere. So we have to be careful what it is we're doing with the children. Do we expect too much from them? My son, when he was 4, right? Great language, he was very smart. I kept expecting to do more and more and more. So my wife said, remember, he's only 4. Yeah, that's right. I had to bring it back, right? There was a 4-year-old little girl sitting in the chair and could not sit for snack, could not sit for activities, could not sit in her chair. So I met with the mom later on that day and I said, you know, by 4 years old, she really should be able to follow along. She looked at me and she said, she's only 3. I said, never mind. I was the one who was in error there. For the 3-year-old, that was more appropriate. 4-year-old was more looking forward. She was only 3. So we have to be careful that we're not expecting too much from them. Make sure that parents understand that too. All right? Raising the bar. With my kids at school, my kids meeting the kids at the schools, I like to raise the bar and expectations a little bit. You raise it too high, they can't do it. But you raise the bar a little bit, and they'll jump up to meet that. So we have to be careful we're not raising the bar too high. How do you view your role? Is the parent now the friend, the teacher, the guider? You all know the parents who say, oh, I'm going to be my daughter's best friend or my son's best friend. And they're being too permissive that way. There's nothing wrong with being a friend of your children, your own personal and the children in your program. But ultimately, who's responsible? I was lucky. When I was a kid, when I was 17, 18, drinking age was 21. But my mom knew that I was not going to get in trouble. We had 3 of my friends over at my house and around the wine coolers. You know, like the Boone's Farm ginger ale, back in the old days. So we're sitting there on a Sunday afternoon at my house, and we're sitting there, the 4 of us, and my mom walks down the stairs. They thought she was at work. So what do my friends do? They push all their cups in front of me. Real swift guys, like I'm going to sit there drinking 4 drinks. So my mom walks around the corner, she says, is anybody going to make me one of them? Because my mom knew we were not going to get in trouble. There was no driving, we weren't going to do anything wrong. So you have to have that trust. She was being our friend, but she was also our teacher and the guide, because she knew that if we didn't follow along, that was never going to happen again. So you have to give your kids some of that leeway. And again, adjusting it for different ages. Right? How much give and take is there? If it's always my way or the highway, all right, you're not going to get very far with your own kids or the kids in the program. There has to be that understanding. Your kids need to know they can talk to you. Are you clear in your expectations? Can you get me a cup of coffee? And that wasn't clear. I really meant for you to go get me one, but I didn't phrase it that way. All right? We take courses being carpenters, electricians, plumbers. How many of your parents have taken a course in child development?
8.
Pardon me?
Not many.
Not many. Right? So us, what we need to do is sometimes remind them what a 3-year-old or a 2-year-old or a 1-year-old will do. So they're not going home thinking, my son's a little monster. No, he's terrible too.
It's still easier as a job than as a parent, I feel.
Say that again?
It's easier for me to do my job than to go home and try to do the same thing, because I can't.
I'm a
When I
little
was a when my children were young, it was easy for me at home, at school, at work, to set the guidelines, to set the boundaries. I went home, I was a mush head.
Yep.
I couldn't do both.
And when we were talking for a couple of weeks before, you all have structure in your programs, all right? So the kids know on a Monday you're going to be doing this, you probably do similar on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's not jumping up and down. For parents, you get out of work, you got to rush it, we got to go to football lesson for the older one. Okay, we're going to go through McDonald's tonight, but I don't want to go to McDonald's. Shut up, we're going to McDonald's. Right? And so they're having a hard time with that. Or they're tired, all right? We need to stop and say some of these parents. And again, I've been kind of fortunate some of we do things. My wife and I, we had our children. My wife said, you know, I can go to work full-time and put the kids in daycare full-time. We're not going to come out ahead financially. Versus if I go to work part-time and keep the kids home, we'll structure things, we'll do it better that way, and I get to see my kids growing up, meeting her. And I said, you got it. All right? So parents need to sometimes say, okay, what are we striving for? What's that golden ring we're looking for? And how are we going to achieve it? Are we going to achieve it by putting them in daycare 40 hours a week, or structuring things a little bit differently? All right? And I got flack from my parents, my preschool parents, saying, how come your child doesn't go to daycare? So I had to have an answer for that. Right? So again, we have to look at it and say, are you the instigator? Are you causing someone this? Is that you, Donna, when you get home? All right?
No.
Right? Scolding your child. always the lecture for it. We have to be careful how we're coming across to them, right? Because they are growing up. My son is now here. I still have one of my favorite pictures of him in a little Speedo, little tiger Speedo, 2 years old, flexing his muscles, right? That's what we want to put into it. Right? We talked about their temperament, but what about yours? If you're kind of quick to jump off the gun, you have to be careful. For the child, you are the most important person in their life, and you should be. But as they grow older, you lose some of that importance in their life when they get to the teen years, in the late teen years. But boy, by the time the 20s come back, you are back to being an important person in their life. So parents need to realize it's not that they hate you or don't like you because they want that independence. That's what they should be going through. If they're always that Velcro baby on you, they're losing some of that development. So we have to adapt to it. And are you adapting to them when they change? Are you ready for, no, why, can't I, mommy, please, 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 mommy, 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 daddy, daddy, daddy? Because kids are going to do that. An infant doesn't do it. A 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, no. What does this mean looking at pictures you really don't want to describe? Right? So we need to stop and, okay, what's their development? How many times do I going to allow them to go, mommy, 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 mommy? Or how many times do they say, but how come? Or why? Or why? When a child's asking me why, over time, I'll stop and say, well, why do you think? And it's amazing when they can give you a response and say, there you go. Right? But if they keep saying why, and you keep answering, they'll keep going why. So sometimes stop and step back and say, well, what do you think? And it's amazing what they can do. Then you're also assessing their language skills. All right, family life. All right, how many of you are being affected by the economy right now? I know most of you, because we talked about some of you have an enrollment capability of 64 and you've only got 44 in the program. Right? That's affecting everybody. Parents need to stop and say, okay, this is what's going on. Daddy's getting ready to lose his job. How are we going to explain this to the kids? Or we've got to cut back in hours. We can't go out to dinner on Friday like we used to do. Kids will understand it if you can explain it to them. But if you just start making these changes and don't tell them why, they start thinking, what did I do? Oh, we can't go to the restaurant because last time I said I wanted chicken fingers, they didn't have any, and I got angry, and they take it upon themselves. So we need to be able to explain things. What affects one child may affect others. Behaviors can be learned by siblings. Right? Attention seeking by siblings or spouses. Right? You have a demanding spouse or a demanding child. How is the married life going on? Finance, support of drug and alcohol abuse. 3 years ago, I made an estimation that there would be more child neglect and child abuse because the economy was tanking. And what happens? What do people argue about the most? Money. And we know that's shrinking. Gas prices have doubled in the past 4 years. What is that doing to everybody's pocketbook? Right? Are parents stopping to explain some of this to their children? 3 years ago, my son and daughter had a friend who lived up the street. Their son was same age as my son, their daughter same age as my daughter. Dad lost a job, they lost the house, and had to move out of state. That's when I was told my job was going to be cut cleaners. I sat down with our children and explained what was going on. What was going to be happening if I do lose my job. This is what's going to be happening. This is some of the changes we're going to do. They didn't have to worry about it. They knew we were talking about it, but we explained it to them. Sometimes we need to stop, depending on the age of the child, and give them an understanding. And no, I'm not talking just 16-year-olds. You can do it to 2.5 and 3-year-olds. It's amazing what they can understand if you bring it down to their level. They can do it. All right? Education. Just because someone has a bachelor's degree or a master's degree or a teaching certificate does not mean they're a better parent. Right? I've seen some people have all the education in the world and have no idea what to do with their children, even though they work with children as part of their professional. What field? Physician field myself. Some teachers can't do it for their own kids. All right, so sometimes you have to avoid conflict. And avoiding conflict is not avoidance, it's picking your battles. Right? Think about it with your children in your programs. And somebody throws a piece of paper. Do you really want to come down hard on that? Right? Or is that one of those times not a big deal. I'm doing something, we'll just take care of that later. Right? So we need to pick our battles. Parents have a hard time with that. All right? Clear language and expectations, like with the coffee thing. I really should have said, please go get me a cup of coffee. That's more direct, you know what I'm talking about. But I phrase it as a question, so now we get ambiguous, and now we have a problem. Sometimes you need to make sure you're being age appropriate. Like I said a while ago, the tall 3-year-old, I thought she was 4. I was causing that conflict. Sometimes we need to walk away, we need to be calm. Sometimes we need to say, you know what, I'm in timeout. Of course, if your child is in time off, are they allowed to play? Talk? No, they have to be sitting there. So sometimes as a parent or a teacher, put yourself in time off, because now you're giving yourself 10, 15, 20 seconds to calm yourself down. That's something we need to teach parents, because parents don't know how to stop and rein it in. When they get frustrated, it just keeps coming up, and if they've had a bad day, it just gets even worse. Find out the child's angry, the little boy with the sneakers. It could have been a big battle with him. We'll find out what's going on. Took care of it real quickly. Then, again, how many parents have been taught what a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, an 8-year-old will do? We need to make sure that parents know what's going on with their children. All right, give them positives, but don't be the American Idol parent. Oh, you're the best thing in the world. You ever watch American Idol? People do not know how to sing, but they've been taught, they've been told, oh, you're so good. We need to be a pro. All right? When a child goes through and makes a picture and you fuss all over it, are you really helping? Because you make them think, wow, this is so good, and all I did was do this. But you can talk about, that's one, I love those colors that you use. Make it appropriate, but don't give it all up to where they think, well, I can do no wrong. Right? Push some time what you talked about. Apologizing when you've made a mistake. How do we get children to learn to make amends if they never see it? I've had to go through apologizing to my children numerous times, but it's taught them that adults aren't perfect. Look around you. Stop and look at the person next to you. Do you see any halos? I sure know. There's not over here. So if we're not perfect, how can we expect our kids to be? So we need to go through and make sure that when we make a mistake, go back and apologize to them. I'm sorry, I was wrong. I shouldn't have done it that way. They learn that way. And then it's amazing how much they will come back and they make a mistake and do it to you. Right? And manage your own stress, because all work and no play makes you a very dull girl. You're all living that life. All right? How to decide too much versus too little, or where can you find the perfect parent with all the answers? Isn't that the family you all want? One of my dads came in, his wife had just had their second child, and he's sitting in my office, and he's got the hands raised, and he's sitting there, and he's looking down the floor, and said, I'm just trying to be a perfect parent, and I'm having a hard time. And I looked at him and said, if you're trying to be the perfect parent, you failed. But if you're trying to be a good dad, you're already succeeding. He was putting so much pressure on himself to be the perfect parent. It doesn't happen. Right? So we need to be aware of what we're doing. All right, how pervasive a problem? Some say 1 in 14 to 1 in 7 have behavior issues. That's 7 to 15%. Think about it. If you get 10 kids in your room, theoretically 1 or 2 of them have behavior problems. That's pervasive here. Are we pushing them too hard, thus causing some of the problems? I think so. I think so much going on that we're making our kids do all these things. We're trying to push them too hard, and we're creating some of these problems because they can only take so much. You all know about it. Think about it when you were growing up. The kids were told by their parents you have to have straight A's. All right? How many people have straight A's? And that pressure that gets put upon them, and that's where they get straight A's, but when they go off to college, they flunk out. Because now they don't have anybody telling them what to do, and they have a little bit of freedom. Happened to my nephew. Straight A student, went off to college, flunked out his first semester. Right? So we have to be careful that we're not causing our own problems and their problems. And this is just a statistic that's drastic. Preschoolers are expelled 3 times more frequently than children in K-12. Think about it. If you kick a child out of preschool, where do they go? What does that set for them? I've been kicked out of preschool at 3.5 years old. That's the kid that says, I have a bad attitude. Or, you know what, they don't like me, the next place is not going to like me, I'm going to do the same thing there. So we need to be aware of saying, if we're kicking them out, why? Are they really that hard to handle? Or did we not know how to handle them? And I'm looking at you right now, and I don't see any halos. There's none over here either. We all need help sometimes with specific children. But if we're kicking them out, where do they go? And the preschool world is not that big. If you hear a child be kicked out of this preschool and other parents at your door, what do you think? So word travels really fast. All right? 46% of kindergarten teachers reported that more than half the children in their classes were not ready for school. They lacked self-regulatory skills, emotional and social competence to function productively and to learn in kindergarten. Which means, 1, are they there too early? Do a really easy sentence. Should they have waited a year for development? If you are not ready, I can hammer and parent, but if you're not ready, it will not stick. How many of you are good with automotives? If I send you to work on my car and you're not good with it, I don't care how many times you go out there, you can't fix it because you have no background with it. Kids need to be ready to learn. You can hammer ABC 1, 2, 3, but if they're not ready, it will not sink in. So maybe we're pushing them a little bit too hard, all right? And if we're doing it always for them, how many of your programs get them completely dressed to go outside for winter time? Good. They need to have some, in the beginning, maybe you need to be doing more of it. By the end of the winter, they should be a lot more self-sufficient. Because that 2.5 to 4 to 5-year-old, because in kindergarten, one teacher, 20 kids, that teacher's not sitting there sipping never heard of this person. All right? Pardon me?
So by the time she gets the last one zip, she has to start with the first one and get them unzipped.
Exactly, there's no more time to go outside. Question is, will public pre-Ks help with this problem?
Yeah, right.
I see some head shaking. I'm not going to answer. That's for you guys. All right? Head Start is the same thing. 16 to 30% of preschool children in those classes pose ongoing conduct problems for teachers. All right? Think about it. Why do we have so much of it? Are we pushing kids? Are parents being too lax on them, or just not spending the time with them? Or they're just going to send them off to daycare, right? And you know as well as I do, there are varying degrees of quality of daycare. Odds are, just by the very fact that you're here, your program is above what's considered average, because you're here. The people who are just running because they want to make some money, but there's nothing else they can do, those are people who will never come here. So we have to look at what it is we're giving some of these children before they go off to kindergarten. I kid you not. Actually, there's an article online. This was in Sweden, I think. The daycare provider needed to go get some award at the mall and put 19 kids into her little car. I mean, really, the kids are like this. They're talking to her. 6 of them in the trunk. It was not in the United States. And that was her second trip. Question. Is it the child, the teacher, parent, or both that's causing some of these problems? Worked with a person years and years and years ago who were working with preschoolers, 2.5 to 3.5-year-olds wanting to go play mountain paddle. Think about that. They wanted to go play mountain paddle with 2.5 to 3.5-year-olds. Right? Same teacher, one day, Marcus is back there going, huh? Same teacher for their program, who got autonomy, had a little party program with the preschoolers. The next day, the preschoolers were being preschoolers. And she looked at them and said, I gave you guys a party yesterday, and this is how you treat me today?
Oh my God.
So, is it the child, or is it some of it us, who have too unrealistic expectations, too high an expectation on them? All right? So, I had one teacher, when a child said a bad word, she really wanted to take him into the bathroom and wash him up on the soap. That's a great way to get fired. Right? Over 22,000 children, exposure to poverty-related risks, multiple risks. Parents are divorced or separated, living in substandard housing, poor economy, not very much of a salary, right? Those children are going to have much more problems, theoretically and typically, statistically, than kids from economically advantaged homes. Which is not to say that kids who live in homes that are the middle class or higher up, and I'm not talking 1%ers, the middle class or higher are going to have better adjusted children. Because some of those parents are so busy with their careers, they're appeasing their children. What, you get home, the child is crying, I'll go get you a new video game. That's not what I want. I want someone to tell me, I'll go get you a new video game. So, just because they come from an economically disadvantage does not mean they're going to be horrible. I have 14 siblings. Do you think we had everything? Absolutely not. But my parents were being parents and they were teaching us and taking that time to go through and do it. All right? Half of us have a bachelor's or master's degree because that's what they instilled in us. All right? So just because you come from a poor background, if you will, does not mean it has to be that way. We will get to a break. How do I diagnose behavior issues? Do we do across-the-board assessments? But those are horribly expensive. How many of you have money in your budgets to have people come in and do these assessments? All right? Sometimes it's insufficient personnel to conduct them. One, you folks just trying to do all the observations on the children, or having personnel come in to do it. Too long a lag time for it. They come in, they have to schedule coming in, it's a month later, they're going to come into an observation, they have to access all the paper, have to put it into the sociometrics, come back now 2 months later, they say, okay, here's what we can do. What do we have to do for those 2 months? If I've been able to handle it for 2 months, I think I can handle it now. All right? And is some of it unnecessary? All right? Again, we want to go through and have a quick diagnosis to be able to handle it. So who should do the screening to form the diagnosis? Who do you think should do the screening on these children?
Well, the initial screenings?
Hmm? Okay. Are you trained for it?
Yeah.
Good. Are you all trained for it? Pediatricians. Some parents say, oh, my pediatrician will tell me what to do. How many times have you brought your own personal children when they're never to see a pediatrician? I know mine have gone 2 to 3 times a year, max. Right? They see the child for short periods of time. They rely heavily on the parent feedback. Oh, he's having such a hard time at home. Okay, we'll give him this prescription. Right? Do they have the training for this stuff? Some have. And so the pediatricians they've gone through. Right? Do they have observation of the child's issues, or are they getting it from the parent? Right? And if the parent is all stressed out and the child threw a block, they'll say, he's throwing things all the time, because they're going to exaggerate, right? But pediatricians are a good part of the team approach. Parents, lack of training. How many of them know what children should be doing, their parameters? How many of them have a bias? My child, or my child. Professional understanding of the issues, understanding of developmental stages. How many of them are in denial? My child would never do anything like that. Or the parent would be full of shit. Checklists available. Dr. Lafreniere next week will be going over this, and he'll have some checklists for you to be able to use that he's going to develop and use worldwide. So you will get some of that next week. And they can use by early education staff. So you can use the parents, you're going to get some. You can use the pediatricians, right? But teachers' efforts to involve the parents in ways to support the children's learning at home. You're doing something, you're doing A at school, they're doing D at home. Somehow, not coming through. But if you can use them together, sending home notes with them, sending home newsletters, homework activities, things that you're doing at school that seem to work well with the children, let them know about it. Right? Creating behavior plans and working together. Shouldn't it be built with the work week? Would you have a chance to actually meet with your parents more than just how things going good? Okay, see you. I'll be back at 5. We need to know what parents are. Parents are having stressful times, but if they don't feel comfortable coming to you or don't feel they have the time, or you're so busy, because I hear it all the time, well, I wanted to talk to you, but you're so busy. I don't care. Grab my arm. Slow me down. I need to hear what you're thinking about. So it should be built into the work week where you have a chance, even if it's 15 minutes, to meet with each family individual over a week's time. You schedule a few a day in the morning when they come, or the afternoon when they come pick them up. So you have a chance to see what's going on, and that makes it better relationships. Early education staff, you guys, preschool, child, early parents, preschool, you have the training, you have direct observation. You could also say, there's my 3-year-old, I've had 100 3-year-olds. Okay, I can put it in perspective of all those other children versus I've only had 1 3-year-old. You get perspective. You have the time period of observation, you see them for 6, 7 hours a day. I had one little girl, my first case for CBS, and we're in the meeting on her. And there's probably this many professional staff as my first case for CBS. And I'm sitting, I had this girl for 8 hours a day in my school. Snack, breakfast, lunch, activities, etc. They want to put her on Ritalin. Because the parents can't handle her at home. So I'm sitting there with a pediatrician and my boss, all of this stuff. To finally, I piped up and I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. You're going to give her a 2-week trial on Ritalin. You're going to see that it's not going to work. You're going to take her off Ritalin. We won't bring the subject up again. My boss is thinking, what the hell did you just do? They put her on Ritalin. 8 days later, they took her off. All right? If she can handle, in my school with 19 other children, the natural parameters, then it's the home that needs to be looked at, not putting her on Ritalin. But they needed to hear from me because pediatricians saw her just a couple of times, psychologists just saw her once, parents weren't a good source for it. You put everything together. We can compare children from those developmental ranges we will. We have interactions with family members, and hopefully we are unbiased, filler your mental lights. Mental health professionals. They have the professional training. They have access to all the diagnostic testing, the knowledge of development, interaction with early education staff. They can work with the staff and family. They get a facility. But think about it. You're 3 years old going to see the psychologist. You're walking into a place you've never been to. You're seeing someone you don't know in a room where you don't know what's happening. You're probably a little guarded. You might be on your best behavior, which is fine to do. Right? So do they have an accurate picture? So for me, when I'm asked to do a diagnosis on a child, I'll say, okay, great. I want to talk to the parents. I want to observe them in the program, and I want to talk to the staff. Then I'll put it all together and tell you what I'm thinking. I'm not just going to go on a one-day thing because, do you ever have a bad day? Do you ever wake up on the wrong side of the bed? Do you want to be judged on that day? Same thing for the kids. So who makes the diagnosis? Everybody works together. Here's the problem. One family that I dealt with, the mom came in on a child that did not have a lot of issues, serious issues. We walk into the IEP, I'm not exaggerating, 18 adults sitting there around the table to talk about this one child. Mom walked in, turned around, looked at me and said, "What do we do?" and started crying. Because she had no idea what to do with all of this. We need to let parents know, if we're going to have a meeting, who might be there. But a little overkill of 18 people for this one child. So now the diagnosis is made, parent is freaking out at you. Now what do? Right? Do you accept the diagnosis, or do you deny it? I think you're full of, or, no, there's nothing wrong. His father was the same way at that age. Parents don't want to accept it. Alright? So now, you try to work with the team treatment. You have to come to some understanding what the parent is going to follow. The family, the program, the therapist work together. Because if you're A, C, and F, it's not going to work. It has to be together. It needs to be clear, consistent communication is a must. Everybody needs to communicate truthfully together. Follow the treatment plan. So now the specialist make a treatment plan for you to follow at school. And you said, I don't have the resources, I don't have the equipment, I don't have the time. So much for that plan. So it has to be something that can be worked with. If you have 10 experts and 6 different ways to proceed, which one do you follow? Parents will follow, do the same thing. At that point, my suggestion is, follow the one you can most readily stick to. Right? If you're on a diet, and the diet says you can have X, the other diet says you can only have Y. Right? Yeah, that one supposedly works better, but I don't like that. So I think I might get success following this because there's a little more flexibility to it. You follow the one you can do. Parents need to have that understanding too. Follow the plan you can stick with. The question is there a weak link? You got A, D, and F. Something's not going to work. You have to all be on C to follow along. Because if someone's not following through, the child will go through and find out which one they can do it. Picture mom and dad. Dad says they have to be in bed by 8. Mom says, man, as long as they're in bed by 9 o'clock. Who do you think the child is going to listen to? Right? So now you're the supervisor at school, and your staff come in. They're all supposed to be there for 8 o'clock. One shows up at 8:15, 8:20, right? And one supervisor allows it, the other one doesn't. What can happen to the other people? They're going to start coming at 8:15, 8:20, and they go to the supervisor who approves it. Right? So everybody has to follow through. If there's a weak link, it will not work. And if it's too difficult, too strenuous, too unnatural, too expensive, it won't work. It has to be something that everybody can buy into. For teaching in public school, they sometimes have special staff because they have the budgets they can go through and do with it. Preschool staff, if you've got a child and they've got a plan that you've gone through, you need to make sure you've got the backing of your director, the supervisor. Because if they're not going to back you up, you will not have the time to get off the floor to work on this plan. You'll not have the time to go through and make sure you're familiar enough with it to be able to actually handle it appropriately or train other people to deal with it. You need to have one-on-one or additional staffing. Right? That's where some places like CDS can go through and try and get an assistant to come in. Workshops, like you're doing right here, to deal with those specific things. Patience and persistence. Because if the child has been identified as a problem, it's not a one-moment thing. There's an issue going on, and it's going to take time to be able to deal with it. Treatment plans, there are just too many of them. I'm not one on medications. All right? If you've got a child who has been diagnosed with ADD or ODD, and you give them the medicines to slow them down, all you've done is slow them down. And you take them off the pill, they go right back. So if you're going to do medication, you need to have a treatment plan with it. Explain to them what it is. You may have ODD, that's fine, but you still have to be following this along. You have to have a plan with them. Otherwise, when they're off medication, they haven't learned anything. Right? There's herbal treatments, diet. I remember one little boy, and my slide got moved over. One little boy sitting up on the hill, nice sunny day. His parents get out of the car, come over to the fence. He jumps on the child next to him and starts pummeling him. No provocation whatsoever. Go to a meeting, the family talked about it. It's his diet. He was affected by so many things in his diet that he could not control any of his impulses. That's why he was angry his parents were coming together, so he started beating up the kid next to him. So we do need to be aware that diet can have a big impact. And I'm not talking about peanut allergies, wheat allergies, gluten, some of these things can have a big thing. Treatment facilities, all right? I'm sorry, if you're taking a 3-year-old son into a cave, what is that child thinking? All right? So to me, that's a lot. In-home staffing and therapy and respite care, because all work and no play make mom and dad very dull. They need to be able to recharge those batteries too. Otherwise, it's not going to work, and that situation will keep on going on and on and on. Treatment needs to be designed for your child and your family or center. Whatever treatment plan chosen, it has to be done in conjunction with the family. Look at it this way. Bad analogy. You've got a dog. You You go to dog obedience class on Wednesdays from 8 to 9. You drop off the dog, you go get a Starbucks. You come back at 9 and bring your dog home. What have you learned to do with that dog? Versus you stay there to see what's going on. You have them 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week. The parents have the rest of 104 hours. You need to work with the family so they can carry through some of the stuff. Even if they're not great at it, at least there's some continuity. Right? This is the workshop that I'll be doing on November 10th. And this is a package I've come up with. It's called the 9 C's. Clear language, calm manner, concise explanations, consistent, caring, choices, consequences, communication, and change. And I'll go through and explain all of that, and it works together as a nice little package. And I've got it all the letter C because it's easy to remember. Again, the dog obedience. You have to be careful of the effect on family. If you're going to have a treatment plan in your program, or start doing things in your program, and you don't tell the family, you get the child to go up, and they go home and go right back down. Explain to the family. Make sure there's individual time for that parent and child, or for the teacher and child to do things. They need to deal with perception of favoritism among siblings. I'm going to back up for a second. Do you have a favorite child in your program? Be honest. I'm seeing some heads shaking this. I have favorites in my program. When I first started the field of review, the director said you can't have favorite children. Baloney. If you do not have a favorite child, you've not invested into that program. Someone is going to touch your heartstrings, be it a poor environment, a speech pattern they have, a behavior issue, something that's going to touch your heart. That's fine. It's a problem if you start showing favoritism to them. That you start having a problem. So you're going to have favoritism. Parent time, perfect parent, never going to happen. Parents need to have that time now. And now a word from our sponsor. All right, now you can take a break. Absolutely. Doug, I asked you to remind you of something. What was it? Help us remember this.
Conscious
Oh,
discipline.
Candy. We're talking about, kids get rewarded for every little thing that they do. When my son, we were in the store, he was about 4, and we're going to the store, and looking at my wife and I, and he said, Papa, if I do a good job, can I have a treat? And he stopped and said, Mason, you're supposed to do a good job, sweetheart. You might get a treat, you might not, but you're supposed to do a good job. If you don't do a good job, absolutely, they will not be there. So I'm not sure if you can get a treat. Well, we'll take that one time. He was good as gold in the shopping trip. Right? Sometimes he got a treat, sometimes he did, but if you're always giving them a treat, well, first of all, if we're always giving you something, at some point, it loses its effectiveness. All right? So we have to be careful how we're doing, just like sticker charts, which will be one of the things at the end. Right? We have to be careful that we're not overdoing it because it has no meaning to me anymore. All right, way to affect change. Only when you're ready to deal with the issues. You cannot get a parent to start instituting something at home if they're still in denial or they're not ready to deal with it. So you have to be ready. When I'm talking with a child or the child who makes some changes, I do it at a neutral time. If you're having an argument with your parent or your spouse, and they start lecturing you when you're in an argument, are you going to listen to them? Probably not. That's why I need to deal with it at a neutral time. All right? Don't talk in front of the children. My mother-in-law was at my house a couple of weeks ago. I'm in the kitchen. Just go down the hallway, up the stairs, then in my son's bedroom. We're talking about something my son did, a good thing, and he yells down, I can hear you! Right? So when parents are talking with the kids watching TV, those little ears hear everything. So that's why the weakest link, if parents are disagreeing about something, talk about it when you know the kids are asleep or when you're out of the house. Because they'll hear it and they'll know which one they need to go to. If you're going to do things, part of the 9 C's, you don't go through and change everything at the same time because it's too overwhelming. Make a few changes at a time. Get that going. All right? Parents or the adults all have to be on the same page. If you've got a child and you're saying from now on, they can't have chocolate because there's something in it that really sets them off. So they go to grandma. And grandma feeds them full of chocolate. Right? Doesn't tell them. Right? And now the child can't bring themselves down. It's not their fault. You can't blame grandma because, we forgot to tell her. Right? So everybody needs to know what's going on. And you know that it takes time. Things don't happen overnight. And that's why you need to keep charts of things. Because over a period of time you say, he was always having difficulty, but look how many less he's having right now. But if you don't have those charts to see what's going on in the beginning, you don't realize the behaviors or the progress that's being made. So it does take time. Step to take in dealing with targeted issues. Cognitive competence a pupil's general feeling of doing well at school. If kids are told, you know what, I know you're nervous going into 6th grade, but I really think you can do a good job and the teacher's looking forward to you. So a child thinks, okay, my mom thinks I can do it. I'm still nervous, but she says I can do it. I'm going to try. Because they've been told they probably can't achieve it. For the anticipation of success probably promotes and enhances on-task orientation. Okay, I think I can do this. Okay, I'm going to try. And so they'll try and do it the best they can. But if they're feeling, I'll never get this, why try? All right? I get that from some of my students. Atkinson states that motivation is highest when the task is perceived as appropriately challenging. I'll explain all of it. And the chance of successful accomplishment is above 50%. So let me break it down. If I'm telling you, you need to go build me a house, and that's all I tell you, your first thought is, holy shit. Right? But now if I tell you, actually, it's more like a shed I need you to build, there are all the tools, and here's the blueprint, and my son is going to help you. Now you're thinking, I can probably do this, right? Because now you know that the task has been broken down, it's going to be challenging, but I think you can do this, right? So we need to make sure kids understand that, yes, you might have a little difficulty, but I really think you can get this if we work on it together. They're more willing to go through than they're looking at it saying, I can't do that, all right? So we need to break it down to levels they can understand and steps they can follow. Bandura says that a personal belief in self-efficacy influences how much effort an individual expend and how long they'll persevere in the face of obstacles or even failure, blah, blah, blah. Basically what that means is, I think I can do it, right? And if I think I can do it, I'm going to try hard. And odds are, if I try hard, I probably will be able to go through and do it. But if I haven't, at least I can say, I really tried hard on this. But if they look at it and say, I just can't do that, it's too big of a task, forget it, they won't even try. So we need to make sure when the kids are making the tasks, the activities, the programs more relevant, something they can identify with, more fun for the students. That doesn't mean watering it down or dumbing it down. No, that doesn't mean we just sort of make it so easy for them that they're going to achieve and not put any effort, all right? But just making it more something they can relate to, all right? How many of you like movies, right? So if we start doing some movie trivia, you probably do pretty well with it, right? Because you can relate to it. But if I start talking automotives now, I'm probably going to lose some people because it's not something you can relate to. So the kids need to know that they can relate to some of this stuff and they'll follow you along. Effective classroom management can help decrease disruptive behaviors and increase student engagement in academic tasks. Basically that means if you're running your classroom right, you'll probably get through what you need to get done. But think about it. If so many kids are going off to kindergarten who have a hard time, what, 16 to 30% from the Head Start? Have they had effective classroom management? Remember the slide a while ago with the teacher almost pulling their hair out? Right? Some programs, it is like that. There is no classroom management. It is chaotic through the whole day. Is that good for the child? Not going to happen. Not good. Poor classroom management has been linked to long-term negative behavioral and social outcomes for students. Right? Think about some of those movies where you know that everything's a free-for-all, like Animal House or stuff like this. Right? If you don't have good classroom management, the kids aren't going to learn much. You can try to do activities with them, but if there's too much disruption, too much distraction, it's not going to work. So part of it is we need to know what it is we're doing and how do we set that up. Right? Well-trained, supportive teachers who use high levels of praise, proactive teaching strategies, and non-harsh discipline. Discipline is not a four-letter word. Right? We all have discipline. Can play an extremely important role in fostering development of social and emotional skills and preventing development of conduct disorders in young children. They're supposed to say Happy Teacher's Day. Right? If you're asking them, if you're giving them appropriate praise, and they'll say, I agree with that. I think you did a great job there. Versus, oh, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Make it appropriate. Give them some good praise, but make sure it's something they can work with. Because they think, I'm so good, how come my mommy and daddy aren't telling me that? So we need to make sure that we're following along, that our strategies, if you guys are working together and you're always giving praise and you don't, who are they going to want to go to? Right? But if her praise is not appropriate, you're not helping them either. So we need to sort of have a blend of it. When they do something that's good, we should acknowledge that. When they do something that's not okay, we need to acknowledge that too, but not come down harsh on it and say, that was not okay. In my program, I don't use the word bad. If somebody once taught me that if I say you did a bad job, then I'm a bad kid, right? That's not okay, right? Don't like what it is you did, right? That's just me. I just don't like to use the word bad unless I'm using it as an example like this. So what kind of praise do we use? Is it overdone? Is it overused? Right? For me, when I get a child who's causing disruption at a circle time, and if I just move that child, everybody knows that child's doing the hard thing, doing the wrong thing. So if I've got to go through and try to separate some children, I'll move 3 or 4 children. So none of the rest of the class knows who it is that I'm really trying to target. So no one child is feeling picking on me again. Right? So I move 3 or 4 children so that nobody knows, but I still get the desired outcome. But I'm not focusing on any one child. Right? If I'm talking about something, and I'm a big one on using stories, which if there's time, I might tell a fishing story. One of the first stories I ever told, to preschoolers. But I use stories to work with kids. And in it, I use names of things. Right? Things that they can relate to. So you want to make, if you're going to try and get something to work on, they need to be able to relate to it and understand it. Having a supporting relationship with at least one teacher has been shown to be one of the most important protective factors influencing high-risk children's later school success. Think about it. One teacher sometimes can stop the child from going to the dark side because someone has taken notice of them. Now, we talked for a few people when we first got here that hopefully at some point in your careers, somebody comes back and says, thanks for working with me. You helped me and my child get through a difficult time. Or you see some of the kids and now that they're growing up, they come back and tell you things they remember. I was at Best Buy a couple of years ago with my niece's husband who wanted to buy a GPS. We get to the counter, there's a young man behind the counter, 19 years old. Looked at me and says, hi Kevin. Looked down at his name tag. Thank you for your name tag. Once I saw his name, I remembered him from preschool. And we started talking about things. He said, Kevin, I still have the dinosaur we dug up when we were talking about paleontology. He's a 19-year-old college man and still has attention to Walmart dinosaur. Right? Obviously, that made an impact to him. The little girl I was telling you about, I can't hear you, scream louder. That little girl, I saw her mom 2 years ago. Got a bachelor's degree from BU and a master's degree from MIT. Right? One little boy about 12, 15 years ago, perfect 1,600 on SATs. No mistakes. They wrote an article about it. You think he's a high school math teacher and he's a preschool teacher. You don't know the effect you're going to have on these children sometimes until much later. Don't worry about that. Hopefully you're getting some sense of accomplishment with them while you've got them. Right? So don't teach to be remembered. Teach to be enjoyed. That's a quote I came up with when I was doing this workshop. Right? Because if you're saying, you're going to remember this, they probably won't. But if you have the enthusiasm and you're involved with them and you make that connection, they're probably going to remember. Right? I was in the 4th of July parade a couple years with my son. In 2 weeks, hopefully, we'll be an Eagle Scout. But we were at the 4th of July parade, and I'm marching along with him. And I hear someone yell, Kevin, I look over, and I recognize one of the moms. She said, see that over there? Looked over, there's a guy in a beard. I looked at him and I said, Jason? He said, yeah. I said, how old are you now? He said, 31. I had him in preschool. All right? Remembered him. He remembered me. You're going to get some of that back. Right? That's why the Best Buy the parade SATs. All right? Classroom management. You know this stuff. If you've got to go through and you've got all your chairs off to the side, they're going to run around. Right? So you have to have classroom management. For my school, and Marcus can tell you this, where my tables are, my teacher sits here, the children sit here, because that other table is reversed. So if that teacher needs to go get something, I can see everybody at their table. Versus if I'm turned this way and they need to move, I can't see anybody behind me. So we've got it set where there's no place where someone is not observed. From my spot, I can see into the sunroom, I can see into the bathroom, I can see down the hallway. Make sure that you've got all your spaces covered. This way kids can't be out of view. Right? Discouraging inside running aisles. Make your programs visually encouraging, but not so busy that they can't focus in on anything. Sometimes too many posters, too many artwork is hard for the kids to follow through. Make sure you get the things that they can use, but that they know they can use them. We have papers and scissors they can use, but they have to be sitting at the table to use them. Right? Proper care materials, and if children feel that they have part of the program, that's their program, they'll take care of it. Marcus can attest to this. Around 10 o'clock in the morning, we turn on our Beethoven song. I was so tired of party. We turn on our Beethoven song, and the kids start picking up funny things when it comes to don't run. Parents have said, can I buy that CD? I could use Lady Gaga if I wanted to. The point is the kids know that when we turn on the music, that's what we need to be doing, and they follow along. All right? So the children have ownership of the program. I wouldn't use Lady Don, you said this before. Establish routine, all right? You know when you get to work what's going to happen for you on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Kids need to know the same thing. When they get to school, this is the outline of the routine. If something's going to be different happening, like a field trip or a special guest, let them know ahead of time. On Tuesday, we're going to go and explain it, and they'll follow along, right?
But not too far ahead of time.
Because they'll forget it. And that's why.
Use your calendar.
Because you'll be hearing about it.
You can use your calendar. too.
Exactly. My kids right now are still getting ready to
And
travel.
if it's a little bit further far ahead, at least they know with the calendar that there's a target date, so.
We had a fire drill a couple of weeks ago, and one little boy seemed to have a little difficulty with it. And so every day since then, he's been saying, are we having a fire drill today? Are we having a fire drill today? And I said, no, we're not having one for a while. I saw him and said, why did you asking me that? Because it was fun. I was thinking he was afraid of it, that's why he's so anxious about it, because it was fun. I sometimes need to stop it and get their opinion on it, right? This is repetitive. You guys need to have participation. Encourage participation of all the children doing things, cleaning up. Everybody helps clean up. Encourage participation in all the staff. If you're the only one who's being silly with them, what's everybody else doing? Watching you? Sorry, that's too big of a task. Everybody gets involved in it. Encourage participation in the families when they can. Yes, they got to go to work. They got to do these things. Well, you know what? Your kids are growing up without you. When you get time, come spend some time with us. You're not just going to sit there, we'll put you to work, but come spend some time with us. Feedback. You guys need to be able to have some time to talk to each other. Otherwise, you're going to forget some things, and too much will go along. And something somebody did was minor. We didn't talk about it for a week. It's no longer minor. Right? So you need to have staff to staff. Staff feedback to parents. I like my parents. I get to know my parents. How would you like it when you came in tonight that I greeted only you folks and didn't pay any attention to you at all? Probably wouldn't be back next week, would you? Right? Why then, when the parents come in with their kids, we wouldn't say hi to the child? Talk to the parent too. Get to know them. They're nervous coming in. They've got different things going on. Get that connection with them. Parents are either going to be your biggest asset or your biggest pain in the asset. Right? I like having my biggest asset. Yes, I am allowed to say that. I had a family come to me today and I used that exact word and she said, well, I'm going to write that down. All right? If you don't have your parents on board with you and something goes wrong, they're quick to point fingers. But if they know you, they know your character, they know what you're doing, if something goes wrong, they're not so quick to judge. And if they get to know you and you say, you know, can I talk to you for a minute? They're not going to freak out because they know you. Right? Or if they need to come talk to you, they're not going to be so afraid. You need to go talk to the teacher. Get to know your parents. Right? And encourage staff feedback to the kids. The kids need to know when they're doing, or they did a great job doing something, or guess what, guys, we're going to be. Now, that doesn't mean you're always putting on a show, but they need to have that feedback to them too. They need to know it. All right? You need to have a variety of activities. Playtime inside and out. If you don't have a playtime inside, well, it was raining yesterday. It was raining today. It was raining Sunday. Your kids can start going wacko. You need to replace with some inside large motor muscle play. Play with them, but don't overtake their play. Don't start directing it. Because at some point, they're not going to know what to do. They need to have that time to direct some of their play. Somebody was talking about children have a hard time with sharing. They let it go on for a bit. The child asked the teacher to come in to, well, how can we fix this? They had the answer, right? Give them that chance. Let children take some of the lead. Explain the games if you're introducing a new game, but realize they're not going to catch all the instructions, right? If I go through right now and list 10 different words at a 2-second interval, how many of those words do you think you're going to remember? Marcus?
6.
It's actually 7 plus or minus 2. Some will remember 5, some will remember 9. Right? That's just where our brains go through. You'll remember the first things I say, and you'll start practicing them. You'll remember the last ones, but you forget in between because there's too much practicing. It's called recency-latency effect. Right? So explain the game, but remember, there's a learning curve here. And sometimes you're playing Candyland, and they just want to keep jumping up ahead. It's just you and them. Don't worry about it. Play with them. You're involved with them. Don't be afraid to be silly with the child. I'm wearing this, but typically I wear a Cookie Monster or an Elmo t-shirt to work. I get all the Elmo characters, all the Sesame Street characters. That's what I do. That's I'm a preschool teacher. I go to school. When I teach my class students, I still have the same clothes on. Right? Make the connection with your kids. Would you like it if you came to this lecture and you walk into class and I'm 7 feet tall and you're all looking up at me like this? That's what it's like for the kids. To them, you are 7 feet tall, all right? Get down to their level where you can, sitting in a chair, wherever you need to, but get down to their level so you're looking at them, not looking down at them, or them looking up at you. Sorry, Marcus, I keep moving out of your range.
That's fine.
All right? So make those connections with them, but be careful that they don't preach. Lessons can be done without preaching. Staffing, make sure you've got enough people, all right? You folks know your ratios according to state guidelines. How come public pre-Ks can do 1 adult to every 15 children? Best practice, they're saying 1 adult to 10. But for you guys, it has to be 1 to 6 or 1 to 7. I'm not saying. Make sure you're using appropriate language. I had 2 teachers who were sitting there one time having a snack with the kids, and one teacher, oh, I got so shit-faced last night. I looked at her and I said, all right? We need to remember where we are. I like teachers bringing themselves in things they've done as kids or activities they like to do, but you have to make sure you're all right? Appropriate language to children. Remember, are you asking or telling? Am I asking you to get me a cup of coffee or telling me? Are you encouraging or discouraging? There's a difference between, that's a good job, and, oh, I like the way you did. Because I like the way you did, saying, I like what you did versus, oh, that was a good job, or you're such a good girl. All right? Sorry, I know I'm a good girl, but did you like what I just did? So we have to be careful how we're saying things. And I'm sorry, I'm tired of everybody saying, okay, my friends, okay, my friends, okay, my friends. Sorry, you can use different words and just keep saying, okay, my friends. All right? Variety of training programs. You know there's different children you're dealing with. There's different stuff to go through. We need to make sure there's a variety of training programs so you have a familiarity with everything. You were talking about a program that I'm not aware of. Right? We're not going to be aware of everything. And bring in your appropriate self. I'm a big kid. I bring in my elbow shirts. I like making balloon animals with the kids. If I get 10 minutes, but not enough time to go outside, the parents aren't there yet, I'll bring out my bag of tricks. But my director once said you have to have a bag of tricks, and I don't really mean card tricks. I like to do stories and balloons. I'll bring out the balloons. I'll involve my students. I'll involve my parents. Nothing makes a parent feel more humble than when they sit there trying to blow up those animal balloons and you can't do it. Right? And you make gags with them and have fun with them. That gives to know your parents. Yes, Marcus?
One of the coolest things you ever did was on Groundhog's Day. You brought in the fake groundhog, and I even thought it was real for a little while.
I go through and I have, actually it's like a beaver, but it's in a paper bag, and I take my sleeve and I stick it in my pocket so that my arm is inside my coat, and it's in the pocket, but I've got the bag, so it looks like my hand is holding on to it, and I've got a little hole, and I'm scratching around like the groundhog. When we talk about Groundhog Day, what that all means, but also about animals. That if you see animals, though they might be cute, you can't go up and touch them because they could bite you, they're afraid, they can't talk to you, all of this stuff. Just like bats. If you see a bat on the ground, doesn't necessarily mean it's dead. Bats are not like birds, they can't jump up into flight, they need to climb up on something and then drop into flight. So kids will say, oh look, there's a bat, and they pick it up and it bites them. So I'm doing that with the groundhog, and the groundhog starts tearing a little bit more, and it squeaks, and the kids are all talking about it. And the kids go, I'm talking about Kevin found a groundhog. Marcus and one teacher said, how did you do that? One teacher said, how did you find that groundhog? I kid you not. So don't be afraid to bring in yourself. The kids, I've done it for 28 years. And I start feeling, oh, this is kind of boring. But it's their first time seeing it. All right? And you make a connection that way. All right. Make sure you're engaged with the children. Visual cues, verbal cues, language and tone. You notice I keep moving my tone up and down. I'm trying to keep your attention going through. Same thing with kids. Physical cues. Staff placement, getting down on their looks so they can see what's going on. Looking down or looking at. I like to look at the kids. Staff relations with co-parents, with co-staff parents, children. Do you really want to be there? If you really want to be there, you should be on the field. It's not just a job. It's an adventure. Trust me, I've had some teachers who I've had to say, or I've looked at them and I'm thinking, this isn't right. So we want to make sure that our teachers are people who want to be there, not just saying, well, I'm going to do this in the meantime. Well, I worked at one program in a 28-month period, we went through 24 staff. Right? The average is 30 months working in a program. Right? Think about it. If you're going through 24 staff in 28 months, the parent drops off the child in January. By March is a new teacher. Right? And for young children, they need to have that continuity. So now they get attached to a teacher, and then the teacher's not there anymore. Right? They're not as willing to get attached to that next person. Right? And that does hurt with attachment, which we'll talk about 2 lectures from now. Modifications. Divide materials into smaller, manageable things. Present materials in systematic fashion. Don't just throw it all out there introduce some of this stuff for them. Numbers and counting. There's so much you can do with numbers and counting, but don't just sit and say, okay, we're going to do math, right? You've given them snack. They've had each have a little cupful of Cheerios. How many Cheerios do you think you have? And they start counting. They probably don't get it right, but they're counting. They're getting into that physical exercise. All right. I don't know if I get the slide here. My son, his name is Mason, M-A-S-O-N. So when we walk around the block, there's a sign that was Madison. So I'd hide the D and the I, and he'd say, oh, there's my name. Then I'd hide, look, that's Mad. Look, that's Son. From that sign, he'd start coming through all these different words. Every time we walked by that sign, guess what he was trying to do? Make new words. There was a stop sign. Here we go. S-T-O-P. Stop. But backwards, it's pops. And if you move the S, it's pops. So, natural environment. Do things in a natural environment with them. I really don't like when parents say, well, I got my 4, we're going to sit down and do math. Do natural things with them. You're going to the store, you need to get 4 cans of Cheerios. 4 cans of Cheerios. Right? 4 cans of SpaghettiOs. Can you count them for me? Next! Right? Make a game of counting cleanup time, all right? Make games of counting boys and girls. You're getting these natural things in there, right? This way they're going to go through and they're going to follow along, right? Adapt your materials. I won't go over all this stuff. You know how to do these things. How many days until seeds start to sprout? The sign says, the package says it can be 7 days. Let's check it on the calendar. Put a little sticker on the calendar. There's 1 day, there's 2 days. Because we grow things for the kids in our program for an agriculture grant we got, all right? But don't overdo things. Not everything needs to be a teachable moment. When you're constantly stopping your day to do that teachable moment, you're interrupting that flow. Yes, there are teachable moments, but sometimes you need to say, okay, we're just going to let this play out. I don't need to stop it all the time. Using clay, Play-Doh adapts things. Play pictures of children made on the walls. Kids will go count their stuff. They'll count how many fingers, how many different colors on their hand. They'll go through and do some of these things, and you'll be surprised that they'll start counting their own snacks of what they have. Or how many drinks did it take for me to get rid of my juicer? They'll start doing it on their own. All right? We had a garden, so we grew some things. We counted the carrots, and we washed them outside in the grass. Showing kids that that's green. I was green before Al Gore. I mean, you can go through, and we got all the dirt off and everything, and the kids went through, and we were eating that we grew outside in our little garden. Okay? Do show and tell. Calendar time. Invite guests, but if you're having a guest come in, let the kids know, especially if it's one of their parents. As you know what kids are going to do, right? They want to sit up there with their parent. And a parent has to go back to work because they want to go with them. So if you're having a parent come, let the child know, Mommy or Daddy's coming, they're going to talk to us about being a firefighter, but then they need to go back to where the firefighters go. You're going to stay here, but they're going to go. My children will go through and respond to it because I've set the stage for it. All right? Natural environment, Madison and stuff. All right? Makes them follow that. Charts, graphs, posters, books, allow children access to them. I brought some of the books in that I used at school. Books are a great conversation starter. Especially get children coming and having not bad attitudes, but having a hard time. Using some of these posters right here saying, really? Really, kids, what do you think this person is feeling like right now? And you need kids to try using language to talk about, well, how could we make it so they don't want to have their hands in front of their face? Kids will come up with some of these answers, some of these reasons, but if you never ask them, you won't know what's really going through inside their head. With some of the courses that I teach, the students in the spring semester have to do Piaget's conservation of liquid, where you get the 2 cups that are exactly the same amount of water, and a cup that's taller and skinnier, and you have to pour it in. So one of the teachers, use natural language with the kids, when the teacher says, okay, I'm going to take this and pour it into that cup, what do you think will happen? 4-year-old little girl looks at it and says, I think the water will be the same in that cup. That's my hypothesis. 4 years old. All right. And actually, there's the little girl right there, where she's doing show and tell. And the kids, when they have a chance to bring in show and tell, yeah, it might not be the theme you're working with, but you're getting in front of a crowd. How many of you would like to come up here and do my part right now? How many would like to get in front of a crowd? When you've got them in front of their peers, it's a good thing for building that self-confidence. I don't care if they're up there for 30 seconds showing the favorite page. You've got them in front of their peers. You build upon that. All right? Getting student and staff participation. I present material in song fashion. I can't sing worth beans. The only I can carry tunes if I've got an instrument in my pocket, right? But I will still sing with them. Actually, tomorrow we're doing this week, Lord Numeroff. If you give it, we go through, and you've all done Scholastic, Seesaw, Firefly, those book clubs. Here's a tip for you. Usually the beginning of the year, and they're still doing it for October month, if you buy over a certain amount of books, number of books, cost, they give you bonus points. I just got 7,000 bonus points. Now, the book was, if you give, The Best Mouse Cookie by Laura Numeroff. It was 25 bonus points. So if I order 30 of them, I do 750 bonus points. I did 7,000. I can order 300 books of varying books. So when we read that story, then we give them each their own copy to bring home. And tomorrow we're doing our French lesson is to that book. We took one of the pages, photocopied it so they can use it as a coloring sheet, and I created my own song. I'm not good at it, but I still do it. And so we're going to do it in English and in French with them. All right? Bring yourselves into it. Have fun with it. Incorporate things. All right? Modifications. You don't want to make it so the child has no effort on doing some of these things. If there's no effort for them and they feel they're always succeeding, at some point they're going to have to do something that they can't do, and they're just going, I can't do it, and it's a failure. So adapt it, but they still have to put some effort into it. Get them to work in groups. If you've got a child who doesn't like to work with groups, and you're working with them, smiley say, hey John, look, we're playing over, you want to come try this? And now you've got another child coming in. They may not interact, but there's another child there. So try to get other kids involved with it. And then at some point, I gotta go do something. You walk away and leave them both there and see if there is any interaction with another adult. Just like you talked about the children fighting for the toys, right? When you give them that chance, they can come through with it. Allow extra time. Parents rushing to go home, which we talked about. Parents, give it a couple of minutes. They'll be ready to go. Still have expectation, but expectation to be adapted. If I ask you, how many grains of rice will fill this room? Can you tell me? Anybody?
7 trillion.
Well, that's the deficit. If I tell you it's 1 million seeds in a 1 square foot area from floor to ceiling, now do you think you can give me an educated guess? Sure, because you can measure from that wall to that wall, and that wall divided by square feet, multiplied by 1 million grains of rice. Now I've got an answer. We need to break them down for kids and things they can understand too. When we say there's 5 more minutes, a 3-year-old does not know what 5 more minutes means. We've got this much more time, and then we need to get ready for, they can see that's not very long. I've used it before with kids who are having a difficult time in the home. You need to go sit in your room. If you're fighting, kicking, screaming, throwing things, you're going to have to sit this long. Which one's better? You want to sit quietly this long, or having to sit this long? The children will take my hands and say, I only want to sit this long. Then what do you need to do? And they repeat for me. Right? So you can go through. Alderson has been very similar. Decreasing peer aggression in the classroom works for home too. You're thinking you're like that, but boy, the kids look at you something different. Right? Deal with the issue head on. That's why I've got books that I like to work with. I don't have all the answers, but if I can have a book to start working with that I've got their attention into, by the way, never read a book to a child that you have not read first. Because there could be some terminology in there, a word in there that you would not have to explain later. Always make sure you read that book first. But I'll go through it and I'll use all these different types of books for conversation starters. That's why the book clubs. Like I said, I ordered for the September one, I've got 100 books now, 25 of each, of 4 different books, to be giving out for themes during the semester. I got the one, Froggy's First Day of Winter, where Froggy has to get himself all dressed up with all the clothes and everything. When am I going to read that one? Boy, come January, that's one of the first books I'm going to be reading.
So you must have a lot of people that order books.
Yeah.
I do. But I also have a budget that I know that I'm going to, I know how many books get torn in your program during the year. You know you have to replenish them. So I set a small portion of my budget, and in that first month, I'll go through the order books I need for the school. Now I get all these bonus points for the rest of the year that doesn't cost me anything. That's the way I do it.
See, you just said budget.
Budget, yeah.
Yep.
We don't get it.
We don't get it.
We're nonprofit. Yeah.
Have you asked? You know what? I guarantee right now, if I were to go to your program, I could find $200 in that budget to go through order books with the parents. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. All right? And then now you got the books to work with.
On their budget. I go to Goodwill and I get my own.
I've done that too. I've done that too.
Dollar store.
Pardon, dollar? Okay? Same thing, if you're gonna do it at the dollar store to get one book, I'll go through and I'll put some of my money, and we've all done it, your own money, but I make sure that I meet that threshold. So now I've got those bonus points to be able to give up books. All right? If I have a change, remind me about a little girl about cookies week. Picture cards, like right there, okay? Show me your silly face, show me your sad face, show me your scary face, and then talk about some of this. I just collected them over the years. It's just different things. You'll find them at yard sales. Teachers who are retiring, they don't want all that. You pick them up for something. Asking the kids, what would you do if you came to school? If I came to school angry, and the kid will tell you, oh, I try to make you feel better. I ask kids, if I had a bad day, what could you do to make it better? If you had a bad day, what could we do to make it better? If you had a bad day, what could your parents do? Get conversations started. And of course, I'm talking about children 2.5 and up, all right? But they may not be able to give you all these things, but you try. If you're not trying to enhance their language, it won't work. Thankfully, my daughter, 23 months old, we're in Old Orchard, looked at my wife and said, Mom, can I have my hat on, please? Perfect 8-word sentence, right? Because we use natural language. My niece, by the way, had children very young, did a lot of baby talk. It was much later before her kid would be able to do that. Give them the natural language. Try to get some of that. If you're having a snack and you're having milk or juice and their cup is empty and they hold it up to you, what does that mean?
Well, we know what it means.
What does it mean? Tell me.
They want more.
Exactly.
More.
So look at them. What? They'll say, please. Please what? Please go home. Please take on an elephant. Please what? More juice, please. Great. If they're 2.5, I'll work with that. If they're 3, can I have more or may I have more juice? I'll try to get that going through. Build upon it. Right? Try it. Yep. Sign language also. Yep. Exactly. Right? But talk about feelings. Now, when I do this with my kids, I'll say, talk about feelings. You know the old song.
I saw you.
And now I got my kids doing it too. Do you ever tell your children they can't smile? Right? You're saying yes. I'm going to ask you why.
It's part of the relationship building, the fun, like sometimes they'll come in and,
Oh,
now we have a great day, and I'll say, there's no fun in the school.
Yep.
There's no laughter, there is no fun.
Which of course you're encouraging them to do.
Right.
Okay. But do you ever tell a child seriously they can't smile? Then why would you tell them they can't cry or can't be angry? Those are all emotions. I tell my children, you're angry, that's fine. You can be angry. But it's what you do when you're angry that I'm going to deal with. You want to be angry, that's fine. But there's no hitting, kicking, scratching, pinching, not feeling stuff. You want to be angry, that's okay. How can you deal with it? All right? Give me a break. Then you ask them, if you had a bad day, what could you do to make it better? Right? The kids need to have some of that ownership, and they can go through doing this. Now, making a child say sorry. Doesn't work very well, does it? Little boy Johnny looks at his sister and says, you're ugly. Sister goes to mommy and says, Johnny said I'm ugly. Mommy goes to Johnny and says, go tell your sister you're sorry. I don't want to. Go tell your sister you're sorry. I don't want to. Go tell your sister you're sorry. Okay? Goes to your sister and says, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you're ugly. Can you really make the child say sorry? If they don't want to, it's not going to happen. All right? So you look at them and say, you made somebody feel sad. How could you make them feel bad? I could make them sorry. I could sing them a song. I could give them a, I could make them picture. They're taking some ownership in it. But to force them to make and say you're sorry, not going to happen. That's an exercise in futility. That's why I throw out the joke. Right? So working with them, giving them those opportunities to work with them. Help them make choices. When I've got a child who is not following along, and I know they need to do something, so I'll look at them. You've got 2 choices. You can do this one, or you can do this one. This is the one I don't want to do. I want to do this one. Now, you have to give them time to process it. Right? I'm going to remind you again. You can do this one, or you can do this one. But if you don't answer, I'm going to choose this one for you, which is the one they really don't want to do. Then they'll be like, I want to do that one. Good. What you can do. But don't put them like this. It's too close. Visually, their eyes can't focus. Give some space. Use your fingers. Right? You're working with repeat offenders. You know they're going to do it again. Once you've got it set up, set the stage for next time, because you know there's going to be a next time. Remember, next time if you do this, this is what we're going to do. If you come in late and you walk in, your boss says you're fired. You weren't prepared for that because you weren't told what will happen if you walk in late. But if they tell you if you walk in late, you're going to be fired, are you going to walk in late? Probably not. And if you do, whose fault is it? Right? But you need to make sure you set the stage. They need to know what's going on. If they have consequences. Choices and consequences. Shakespeare had it right. Thrice is mine, thrice again to make it mine. Typically, on the third time of being consistent with it, they know you're being consistent, they're going to follow along. Right? Shakespeare always did everything in threes. Team consistency. Get other parents with you. Your face needs to show the importance of words. If you get a child who's yelling at you, you say, no, don't be yelling. Your face needs to show you're being serious. And you know it. You've seen people doing it. It needs to be effective. You need to put it all together. And you know, sometimes you just want to crack up.
Oh, yeah.
Right? But you got to have that poker face. Because if you crack up, they're disarming you, and you'll never get them back. So you got to have that poker face sometimes. And then when you offer in your break room, you can crack up. All right? Set the stage. If they're going to do it again, make sure you let them understand, if you do this again, this is what's going to happen, but then you need to follow through. All right? Ask the kids to help. Kids will help monitor other kids too. Without tattletaling, but they'll help monitor some of this stuff. All right? Sharing. That's the piece right there. All right? Kids don't automatically know about sharing. If I get a child who has all the trains and another child wants to play, and you tell them, you need to give them a train, I don't want to. Give them a train, I don't want to. So I'll say to them, okay, you have all the trains, watch. I'm going to give them back to you. And I take all the trains and I bring it over to the other child. Now they've got all the trains, and you want one. What do you want them to do? And the child says, I want them to share. Great. Now I get them all back their trains and say, okay, he wants one. What do you need to do? Right? Because they can't. There's nothing else they can do. I've got to share. I want him to share. So you work versus making them do it, and now they start getting angry and screaming and crying. You work with it that way. Find tricks that make it work for you for the children that you have. Cooperation. Use teachers, for example. Act it out. You know, kids like to sit like this, and a child needs to get up to go to the bathroom, and they step on somebody's hands. Right? And I'll keep telling you, remember, sit with your hands in your lap. So sometimes I have one teacher walk by and purposely have them carefully step on me. Ow, 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 I explain. But if I had my hands like this, they wouldn't step on them. So now they're going to put their hands like that. I'm not harping on them, I'm using an example for them. Screaming and yelling. Sometimes, if you're doing it right to express something like in a story or something, and you use the loud voice or screaming and yelling, they'll understand that if you're doing it appropriately. Or do you want someone screaming and yelling at you? I'm not sure what it's going to be something else. Make school fun. Again, all sorts of books to work with. These are some nice book story starters to work with, all right? Use your talents. I like to tell stories. I'm hoping there's a chance to do one. But I'll put myself as the main character at the age the children are at. So now they'll use that, they'll remember that story, and I'm not harping on them anymore because they can remember the story. Field trips. Field trips can be great. You have to set the stage and let them know where you're going. And make sure you've got enough staff. I went to the field trip to tree orchards. I got a grant. I wrote a grant, a $2,500 grant from agriculture. So we went to tree orchards. I had 23 kids and $23 left. Right? That's how I get my parents. They're my greatest asset. Right? And varied activities. I like to use tools. The kids last week were helping me cut the 2x6s with the handsaw and then hammering it together. We were making a raised garden bed. And now they're great pictures. We made the raised garden bed, full with the dirt in it, and all the kids come in and sit in with me and pretended to be asleep. Because it's a bed. A garden bed.
It's the heater.
There's one of my
Yeah,
field
if you
trips.
turn the heat down.
And I got lots of parents with me. That makes it work that way. It's the heater.
Yeah, if you turn the heat down on it might.
There's no control.
Oh.
Sorry, folks. I'll try to talk louder. Again, is your routine too rigid, all right, too structured? You have to have some give and take, you have some flexibility. I'm going to go a little faster because I know we're going to run out of time and I want to get all of this. Is there adequate coverage? Are there adequate staff? Now, there's a difference between adequate coverage and adequate staff. Adequate coverage means you have enough teachers. Adequate staff means, are they well trained? All right? Right? Do the staff have management support? Do they have parental support? If your parents are not with you, it's going to be very hard to get things going. Do staff have each other's back? Right? You need to be able to trust the person you're working with. Then if something's going to happen, they're there to be able to read you to help you out with things. I was accused of child abuse 7 years ago in the program I'm working right now. What saved me is I figured there was something wrong with this family, and so we started keeping notes right away. Every staff person kept notes. If you had an interaction with them, you were to write it down, send it to me as an email. I'd print it off, give you the 2 copies so you can make sure I didn't change any words. You sign both of them. I keep a copy. You have a copy for your own records. All right? Sure enough, when that family had to be removed from the program, and only one family in 28 years of doing this, and I regret it to this day, That's when the accusations started flowing. But because of my program, no one's ever left alone with children. We've documented everything. We get to know each other very well, and our parents are our greatest asset. There was no basis for it. It was investigated, but there's no basis for any of this. But the only way that we survived it is because we all worked together. You have to be comfortable with yourself. Objective assessment from staff who work with the child, right? If you don't feel comfortable with what that staff person is doing with the children, you're always going to be watching them like a hawk. You have to work together. If you think there's a problem with the child, you've got the checklist you need to follow through, and you have to do it independently. You can't both sit there and say, yeah, I think there's a problem too. I don't think there's a problem, but I don't want to say it. You have to do them objectively, independently, then you come together and bring everything together. Are you in agreement there's an issue that needs to be addressed? If so, how do you address the issue? Set up a meeting with the parents. Assure them you are there for the child and family. Have examples of what you think is the problem. You can't say, well, I think it's because you look foolish that way. Well, we notice that there's a recurring pattern here. These are the opposite. These are the issues we've been seeing independently. And then ask the parents, are you seeing some of this at home? They're either going to say yes if it's happening, they're going to say no if it's happening, or it's not happening at home. You have to come to the truth.
I have a child, he's 16 years old, and he started banging his head recently on the floor. And he always puts his hand, he doesn't speak, I mean, he doesn't put words. And he always puts his head, and he cries, and then today he did it on the floor, and then he went over on the mat and did it, because the mat was soft. I've asked Mom, and she said she just started seeing this at home too, but we're at a loss at what's, well, not at a loss what's causing it, but.
I don't know the family. I don't know more than what you presented in that 15 seconds. My first two things that come to mind is there an ideological problem? In other words, can they not hear? Si vous parlez en français, vous me comprenez, mais vous autres ne comprenez pas. Ça va être vraiment difficile pour vous autres, n'est-ce pas? If I start doing everything in French, you're going to have a hard time except for done. Right? Picture from a child who cannot hear anything you're saying. For them, it's all a mumble. They're having a hard time. They get frustrated. That could be something there. It could be also, if it's recent, it could be double ear infections. My son had double ear infections, never gave any indication. Right? So, have you ever had appendicitis? Okay? If you've never had appendicitis, how do you know if you've got appendicitis? You know if you've got a sore throat. How do you know if you have appendicitis? Kids at that age can't, first of all, the verbal skills to do it, and they can't explain, and they don't realize, I have pain in my ears, I'm hitting my head so to stop the pain in my ears. I would have a doctor go through and do an audiological exam plus a physical exam. It could be.
She had just shared with me this morning that she was going to call the doctor and find out if there was if he could recommend anything or whatever, but he doesn't speak, he doesn't have words, so he doesn't, he can't tell you.
Even if he had natural language development at 16 months, he probably couldn't tell you. At 16 months, they don't have enough of it.
He's not speaking yet at all, and all he does is go,
Then at that point also, at 16 months, they should have more than that. And that's where I would, and again, in coordination with your staff and the parents, suggest, not request, suggest they have an assessment done through someplace like Child Development Services or Pediatric Services.
And she thought that was a great idea, and now she's back out saying that she doesn't see anything wrong, and that, I mean, she said he's asked, fine and natural to her, but.
Yep. And that's where Parent Maria said, no, he's probably just like that. I think you're full of, right? Some parents do not want to hear. This is where if you're really seeing it and other people are seeing it too, you want the window open a bit?
No,
Okay. If there's other people are seeing it, you have a sneaky way of getting around it. Invite somebody from CDS to come spend a morning at your program. And then that CDS caseworker might say, and then they can make an outreach to the family. All right? Or, like here at the university, we have Conley Speech and Hearing. They come in every semester and do a hearing exam with the children. There could be some place in the Bucksport area that might be able to come in and do audiological exam on the kids.
Well, she keeps telling me that she's concerned that the child is not speaking. And I expressed the same thing with her. I'm concerned as well, that he's not even, the only thing he does is He does not make.
And can you think of two things on the parent's mind right now? That part. One is, the other thing is, how much is this going to cost?
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
And
she's
it's
a
well
single
intentioned.
parent.
Right? So you need to be able to reach out to them and say, listen, here are some things, there will be no cost to go through to them. And depending upon, of course, as a single parent, there are probably programs that allow her to take the child in for a medical exam. But that's one I'm reading right now because we all know that's not typical.
Right.
There's some things that are typical, that one isn't. And for them to go to the mat shows that they were trying to do it. Something is going on in it, but that floor was just too hard.
Yeah, he's smart enough, you know, and to know that, but I mean, but it doesn't stop him from doing it.
And this is where you really get involved in that.
Yes.
Because they're
Thank you.
definitely at risk at that point, right? And from the 15 seconds of what you explained. Again, there too, have specific examples when you're talking to the parent about what we notice, you know, every time after snack time he goes over, you've got something concrete to say. It's not just, well, I think you saw it a couple of times last week. No, that doesn't cut it, right? Illustrate what you're willing to help as a program to do it. Assure them it's on another slide. Have paperwork, even if you can research some articles, you guys have the internet, right? Children banging, plug in children banging heads. You'll be able to pull some things up. Ask if regular meetings will be assistant to the parents because, again, some of them don't have an understanding of what children are supposed to be doing, but assure them of this. That asking the child to leave the program is the last resort, and it should be. Because if you've got a child that you can't deal with and you kick them out of preschool, where are they going to go? The child I had to kick out, I had no choice. The decision was out of my hands. Now, long story short, that child was also kicked out of kindergarten. All right, so it was a very extreme case, but let them know that when you want to meet with the family, they're thinking that, are we going to have to leave? Because there's an issue, a biting issue, a screaming issue, a pushing issue, a scratching issue. Let them know that we're here to work with you. All right. Behavior charts, right? But behavior charts, again, in the reward system will be overused, it's not going to be effective. Who's going to use them? And if you're saying it has to be this that they do to get a sticker, and somebody says, no, as long as it's this, we'll give them a sticker. No, now you're having two different things. You need to be clear on what it is you're going to be doing. Do the parents use them? Do the child know what it's for? All right? Do they go back and forth between the school? If you use sticker charts, there'll be examples later. If you use sticker charts and you go through the week, and you send them home with the child, do you have records of what they did? You remember 3 months ago how difficult it was? Now it's all a lot easier. So if you're using sticker charts that you can send home, photocopy them first. Keep a copy for yourself so now you can see in October it was this difficult, in November it was easier, December was easier, January, can't even tell what anything going on. But if you don't have that history to go back, your memory's not that good, folks. I don't mind it, especially with multiple children. So make sure you photocopy them before you send them home. Reward and punishment. This is where sticker charts are difficult. If you tell a child, if you throw something 4 times, you're going to lose this for the rest of the day. Well, so now by accident or whatever, they've done it 4 times, and it's only 10 o'clock in the morning. The child is thinking, oh, my day's ruined. I'll keep on doing it then. So you have to be careful. If you take something away, can they earn it back? By 10 o'clock, if they've lost it, why be good for the rest of the day? And children learn that very quickly, right? How long before they receive a reward? If you tell them, you have to be good for 17 and a half days, and then you get a candy bar, they can't follow that, right? So how long before they receive the reward to show what it is they've done something good? Has it explained well to the child, the family, the staff? Is everybody following along with it, right? Here's some charts, right? You can go to the internet and just pull any chart you want to. Things you need to work on. At the end of the week, photocopy them, all right? Take it home, but you need to have a record of what was going on. Parents must be reminded to accentuate the positive. Parents are going to forget that their child actually did something good during the day if they're battling so many negative things. Even if there's a couple of things they did good, they need to remind themselves that their child did that, remind the child. And at the end, parents need to make sure they're giving their kids hugs and kisses and say goodnight. I don't care how bad that child is doing. If they're allowing you to give a hug and a kiss, give them that hug and a kiss. They need to hear that. Remind them of the positives, not just focusing on the negatives. Reinforcers. If they do a good job, what are you going to give them? All right? You have all sorts of these things. Food is a very controversial one because of all the health issues. But you know what? For young kids, sometimes a candy corn, it's just as good as a whole bag of them. All right? If you know what you do, it doesn't need to be a whole cup of something. It can be one piece. I wouldn't do soda, personally, but this is the chart that came through. All right? So those are food reinforcers. Secondary reinforcers, you've got Dollar Trees. Right? You can get a whole with the Halloween, 3 weeks after Halloween, Walmart can have everything 75% off. I bought a 3-year supply of those Halloween cups from when we do Halloween. Right? Instead of $1.50 a pack, it was 15 cents for a pack of 5. I bought a 3-year supply. So now when we do Halloween, they all get their Halloween cups, 3 cents a piece. Right? It's amazing what you can find if you buy off-season like that for little rewards. For kids that are appropriate, of course. I saw a face. No? Social reinforcement, that's probably the better one, is they get a chance to do something special with you or with mom and dad for parents at home. All right? Kids can use points. They can earn points to do something. It has to be appropriate. If they have to earn 100 points and they only get 3 a day, it's too long for them. It needs to be something that's a little more immediate. Just like if I did something bad on Monday, are you going to punish me on Friday? Because by Friday I don't remember what I did wrong. Punishment needs to be fairly close to when it happened. Reinforcement needs to be fairly close also. Pardon?
Wait till your family gets home.
Yeah. We all heard that one. All right? Again, different things. You can go to the library and get some tapes and things to listen to. Sitting up your classroom. So they did a great job, especially a child who's having a social issue. You did a great job. You get a chance to go listen to a story on tape or watch a little bit of a video or play something on the computer. At our school, we have 3 different computer systems. We give them about 10 minutes on the computer, then we turn the egg timer over. Then when the same is done, the return is done. No muss, no fuss, no power struggle. That's just the structure that we have. All right? Again, you can find out, you got little boys, you get the Boston Red Sox. You got little girls, you get little princess stuff. I'm not being sexist, little girls are probably not going to go for Boston Red Sox. The boys are probably not going to go for the princess. Find someone who's going to reach for them. Things parents are trying to work on. You've got Monday, Sunday through Friday, Sunday through Saturday. Right? Tracking behavior. Do you remember everything the children does? And you remember that a week later? Same thing for parents. You know parents are busy. Have a little chart they can go through. Things you need to work on, things you need to know, expectations. Right? Kids love police officers and those badges. Justin Bieber. Okay. Just again. All right, folks, you got to have fun at work. Right? So there's different things you can go through and do. There's all sorts of these charts you can go through. And you know, parents, if you say, if you go online and find these charts, what's the parent going to do? Not going to go online and find the chart. So you go through and you can photocopy it, or give them a 2-week supply that we'll talk about at the end of the 2 weeks. But you have to realize, what are you trying to change? You have to know what it is you're working on. That's why some of these are very specific. Children don't like sleeping in their own bed. There we go. If you can sleep in your bed, three stickers in a row will get you something special. If you do the whole week, it's too long for them. I didn't talk negatively to them. I took turns nice. Got along with my siblings. There's all these different charts that can be going through for things you're trying to work on. Expectations. By the way, those expectations one here work pretty well too. But don't forget the power of the words, I love you, I'm proud of you, you did a good job. Those words are a whole lot better than all those stickers and all of these things because they'll hear it. And it's so important that I have to stress it again. Don't forget them. They need to hear it. Tell your parents they need to say it to their children. My father, again, not he was brought up, I don't think I ever heard him say I love you. It took my mom a long time to because it was just not part of her generation. All right? I tell my kids every day that. My son will say, I know Papa. All right? But that's okay. I'm still going to say. Words can hurt or heal. What did yours do today? Don't forget the power of a hug. This is a tricky one because of all the child abuse cases. Back in the late 70s, early 80s, a lot of child abuse cases were coming to me in public, and a lot of men were doing it. I was in the field at the time. My director was a male. And so the policy was, if a child is crying, there, that's okay. You'll be okay. And he said, are we going to raise a generation of hands-off kids who don't know how to express themselves? If a child needs a hug, you give them the hug they need. No more, no less. You give them the hug. They want to sit in your lap to read stories, have a story read to them, let them sit in your lap. But I tell my teachers here to take, not all my kids are potty trained. Instead of sitting in your lap, spread your legs, have them sit on the floor. One of my teachers last week, it happened to her. She didn't remember. Don't forget the power of the time spent with mom or dad or the teacher, doing something the child wants to do. They need to have some ownership. They need to have a little bit of power of things to do. Otherwise, they feel like, I'm not in control. I'm inconsequential. I don't mean anything. They need to know that when they say, can we go, you know what, I think we can. Let's go do that. Right? It used to say these with the quality, not the quantity. Sorry, if I give you 5 good minutes of time and then ignore you the rest of the day, that doesn't cut it. It's both of them. You need to do good time, but you don't have to spend all the time on it. You have to blend it, right? This workshop is not meant to be all exclusive, right? The one in November, we're gonna have time for more give and take, asking questions, such as at all 5 lectures at that point. Never stop learning from other teachers, parents, or the kids themselves. My son, I was working on something, true story, he was 4 years old, I'm working on someone's construction in the yard, and I'm having a hard time with it, and you know, pulling the camera, all this stuff, and my son, Papa, maybe I'm working over here. He takes a step back. And then I said, yes, miss, what did you want to say? He said, well, what if you try this? And I looked at it, maybe right. All right, 4 years old. So don't forget to learn from the kids. They can teach us some things too. Right? Remember to have fun. Your own kids grow up very quickly. The kids in your program grow up quickly too. Before I know they're gone. Tell parents, don't rush childhood. Don't forget to smile. All right? The upcoming workshop. This is a thing for you folks. In 2 weeks, I'm going to do a workshop for parties on toilet training. And I know you all have good stories on toilet training or tips. Send them to me. You've all got my email address. I send you all emails. Send to me your stories. Send to me some of your tips, because you can get my perspective when I find online. Right? Send me your proven things that I can go through and pass it on to everyone, because we all need tips like that. So send me your tips on how to do toilet training. Right? It's 8:20. Do you want to hear a fishing story?
Yes.
This is 27, 28 years old. I'll try and stay in one place, Mark.
No, go for it. Walk around.
And the kids in the school were going through it, they were spitting on things. They spit on the tables, they're spitting on the floor, they're spitting on each other. Right? And how many of us want to nag at them? Right? So I sat down and I said, okay guys, I'm going to tell you a story. A long time when I was a little boy, my mom said, Kevin, you're going fishing with your brothers. And I thought, great, I'm going to go fishing with my brothers. They never take me. Little did I know they had to take me or they couldn't go. So they had all this stuff, I didn't have time. So I grabbed a stick, a string, and a paper clip, and I got in the car with them. We got to the boat, they sent me to one side, they went on the other side talking about girls and cars and all of that stuff. And all I had was my string, my paper clip, and my stick. And I remember something my grandfather told me, Kevin, there are 2 times it's okay to spit. One is when you get something in your mouth, you need to get rid of it. You can spit into the toilet, you can spit into the trash can, you can spit into a tissue, you can spit outside. You never spit on tables, you never spit on the floor, you never spit on your friends. The other time is when you need to go fishing. You spit on your fish hook, and it's amazing what you find. But remember, Kevin, you can't tell your brothers. You can tell your sisters, but you can't tell your brothers. Why I couldn't tell my brothers, I don't know, but that's what he said. So I'm over there, so I tied my string to my paper clip. I remembered what he said. So I spit on my fish hook, and I threw it in. I looked over at my brothers, trying to see what they were doing, when all of a sudden, my fishing pole started going crazy, and I had to reel it in. I reeled it in, and there was a fish that big. I couldn't believe it. Well, I didn't want to eat it, so I took it and threw it back in. So I looked at my brothers, and I spit on my fish hook, threw it back in, and all of a sudden, my fishing pole started going crazy again, and I had to reel it in. Help me, please. Everybody. There was a fish that big. It was amazing. Well, my brothers thought all the fish were on that side of the boat. So they sent me to their side. They went to my side of the boat. They had their sprays. They had the little rubber worms. They had fishes. They cut into little pieces. Those are all things called bait. They put on their fish hooks. I went to my side of the boat. Spit on my fish hook, threw it in. I just say, how's it going over there? My fishing pole started going crazy, and I had to reel it in. And there was a fish this big. I couldn't believe it. I threw it back in. Now my brothers came over and said, Kevin, what are you using for bait? Is it okay to tell them this? I love it when they say, well, I pretended to sneeze. You sneeze in someone's face. That's not me. So I turned my face away, pretended to sneeze, spit on my fish hook, and threw it in. I never had to answer them. As soon as it hit the water, my fishing pole started going crazy, and I had to reel it in. There was a fish that big. Man, imagine the tale I was able to tell. Well, on that day, I was the only one who caught fish. None of my brothers caught it, but I caught fish. So now here's my question for you. One of the 2 times was the greatest fit. And how do you get rid of it?
Spit it in a tissue or on your boat.
So they're going to answer the first one, toilet, trash can, outside on the ground, etc. And the second time is?
On your fish
Still
hook.
fishing. Right? You know what happened to the spitting in the program? Completely stopped. Completely stopped. I couldn't believe it. Here's the problem. 3 weeks later, they said, Kevin, tell us the fishing story. And I said, what? You know, tell me when you went fishing with your brothers. What? You know when you spit? Huh? I made it up as I went along, and I wasn't listening to myself. They remember the story. They had to tell me the story again so I could repeat it to them. That's the power of a story sometimes. If you do it right, what they'll... And so now, if spinning started again, what did I have to say? The fishing story. Right? Now, how do you know that fishing story is not true? Exactly. How could I reel it in? I have to stick it. Kids will not pay attention to that. They're going to be involved in the story, especially when they start helping out with it and all of this stuff. So don't forget the power of some of those stories sometimes. Use your own natural creativity for doing things. You don't have to go too far with it, but have fun with it. But remember the stories you're telling. All right? Thank you, folks.